Hi, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so we are ready to go on YouTube and everything else. So whenever the members are assembled, you can start.
Okay. Yeah, we got everyone up on the screen. So that's good. Okay, good morning. During the declared emergency, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and in-person attendance limitations. This will be a virtual public hearing, and participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event that is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting either by their computer, a phone or tablet app, or by telephone. All participants will automatically be muted on entry, and when your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Panel members participating today are Donald Taylor, Mishi McCloskey, Sophia Ruddick, and Stan Kumoric. And I am Michael Clark. I'm the panel chair, also participating by video. And we also ask that you registered participants are only participating by audio. We also ask that you mute your devices until you were called on to speak. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaws that apply to the property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever properties to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of a committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address, because Committee of Adjustments and the TLAB, in the event of an appeal, will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee rendered here today, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body and in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedure is as follows. I'll call each item in the order listed in the agenda, although we'll first deal with some preliminary matters, being deferral requests, and in one case, a withdrawal of a file, and then we'll go back to the top of the agenda and work through. When an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with a presentation if desired. When the committee does not require presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to address the committee, and the committee may ask questions or then take the matter into the committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee, and the clock in the room will show and staff will notify when you reach the 5 minute, and at that point I'll ask you to wrap up. When addressing the committee, please state your name and address clearly for the record, and remember, please, to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. We deal with planning matters here. We don't deal with building and construction or drainage type issues, and nor do we deal with issues between parties and issues of neighbors. We're looking at planning issues. So the applicant, where a matter is contested and we're going to have presentations, the applicant or agent goes first and makes their presentation to the committee. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals that are made at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application of being substantially revised in order to ensure that the revised application is both accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application have been informed of the changes. Also note today that we have a lot of applications that we have revised notices, so it shows the highlighted revised agenda item with associated plans and usually a waiver of the a notice of the waiver, and so that's we'll have some that have already been substantially revised in accordance with. So then, after we've heard from the applicant for 5 minutes, any individuals either in support or opposed to the application would be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they finish their presentation, and when all speakers finish, the applicant is given an opportunity to respond only to those questions and rebut those issues that were raised by the neighbors, but not to introduce new information at that time. And that will then mark the end of discussion on the matter. The application is then taken into the committee for a decision. Some preliminary matters we've got to take care of. First, the approval of the minutes from the last hearing, which was April the 5th. If I could have a motion approving those minutes. I understand those minutes have been revised in accordance with comments from panel members. Can I have that motion, please? Mr. Komarek, thank you. Seconded by Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? Minutes are approved. Okay. Before we deal with any deferral requests, I believe there's my mistake in the setup. It wasn't item number 1. It's item number 4, 200 BARMAC Drive. If you can call that application up. This was to regarding the to permit loading space deficiency, and loading spaces should be in a wholly enclosed building in this case, but we're understanding the additional materials that this application is now being withdrawn. Madam Bartosik.
The agent on the line, they are asking for the file to be closed.
Okay, and that is Gino Sardano. Sardaro. Sorry, sir. Okay, and there's no other speakers on that. So, sir, welcome. You're withdrawing your application. Perhaps the variance is no longer required.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So, members, we need a motion to close the file on the basis that the applicant is withdrawing his application. Mr. Taylor?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll move for closure on the grounds that the applicant is withdrawing the application.
Thank you. Seconded by Ms. Reddick. Thank you. All in favor? Okay, the matter is withdrawn. The file is closed. And thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Now we have a number of deferral requests this morning on our chart that we received from the planning department. And we go through those first, and we speak to the agents and see in some cases the agents do not agree to the deferral. So let's walk through those. We'll deal with item 1, then item 3, and then item 10, and item 22. So we'll go in that order. First, the item number 1 is 3165 Weston Road. It's to permit a secondary suite with one variance that a secondary suite floor area, internal floor area, can be no more than 45% under the bylaw. In this case, it's 100%, which there's a request from community planning to defer for reason number 1. And on the line, we have Hetal Parmar, the agent for the applicant, as well as the neighbor, John Gardner, at 46 Samba Drive. So firstly, dealing with it's the first application anyway, but it's also the first deferral request from staff.
Mr. Chairman, sorry to interrupt. The agent
Yes.
for number 1 is actually not on the line. However, we do have the neighbor, John Gardner, at 46 Samba Drive.
Okay, yeah, okay. So I don't know. We'll have to then, I guess, hold it in abeyance. In number 1 deferral recommendation, this is for the applicant to submit all required material plans and or information relates to missing, incomplete, or unclear minor variances, etc.
Yeah, we're just trying to we'll put this one towards the end of the agenda since we're trying to get a hold of the agent.
Okay, to see if he agrees to that there's things missing with this application, that accordingly it has to be deferred. And I'd also like to hear just an understanding of what the variance is exactly. There is that one variance. Okay, so we'll put that on hold. Next item number 3, 21 Waltham Drive. Again, it's a request from community planning to have this matter deferred. The agent, only one party registered, is Christine Outred, the agent for the applicant.
Good morning. It's actually Bill Outred.
Okay.
Christine's my daughter. She's away for a few weeks.
Okay, her name was on the list as a speaker
Yeah.
this morning. So are you the agent or the homeowner?
I am the agent. Christy works for me, so as I said, she's away for 2 weeks, so I'll take care of this today.
Wonderful. Okay, so this is an application for various additions, including an attached garage, and there are 3 variances. We have a request in community planning to have this matter deferred for condition number 1. Are you okay? Are you in agreement with that? What's going on with this application?
Yep, I'm in agreement with that. We did provide revised plans back 2.5 weeks ago or so. Planning didn't have time to review in time, so I'm in agreement. We'll defer for a short period, and I'll deal with planning. We'll get it back on as soon as we can.
Okay, so there's no other speakers. So members, any questions, or can I have a motion to defer? Mr. Kamarick? Motion to defer, okay. Guess you're on mute.
Sorry, I was muted. Motion to defer so that applicant can process with community planning.
Thank you. Seconded for that. Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? Okay, sir, the application has been deferred, and you'll get back in touch with staff when you want to place back on the agenda, or your daughter will after her hopefully well-deserved vacation.
Okay, thank you very
Okay.
much. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Bye.
Okay, so the next deferral request from staff is item number 10, 1820 Ford Street. It's an application for a detached dwelling with a detached garage in the rear yard. We had a request from community planning, and we also had a request from the applicant due to the negative planning position, which will give them time to revise the application. And the speaker on this is Murray Fern.
Good
Agent for
afternoon,
the applicant.
sorry, good morning, committee members. My
Morning,
name is
Mr.
Murray
Fern.
Fern. I'm representing the owners of 1824 Street, and I guess it was my initial request to have a deferral for this project. But I just had a couple of questions with regards to the committee members with regards to this application. We received an email from the planning department, I guess about, on Monday, March 21st, with regards to the Long Branch Neighborhood Character Guidelines.
Mhm.
And I hadn't heard of this all through our zoning review or anything, and so just as I say, on March the 21st, we received this email from the planning department. So we've been trying to deal with that, and unfortunately, we haven't been able to finalize our plan that they would be approving our application. So we're asking for a deferral.
Okay, so anyway, they've requested the deferral. You've agreed to that. And also you're mentioning the Long Branch Character Guideline checklist. You weren't aware of that previously?
Well, no, and that was a question. Shouldn't we have been aware of that at the zoning review? I don't know. I've never. I've been
I
doing.
guess you don't do a lot of work in the Long Branch, New Toronto area, because that's been a standard thing for quite some time. Perhaps staff can opine on that, but perhaps you can have a conversation with staff, and we don't have to have that discussion on air right now while we're doing a hearing.
Yeah.
Okay, you can perhaps find, I guess, you don't do a lot of applications in this part of the city, Mr. Fern. I know you are a regular agent, seen you many times before, both at Toronto, East York, and North York, but what can I tell you? You need to.
I just have one other question for the committee, if I could.
Sure.
This Long Branch Neighborhood Guidelines, the planner is telling us that they have standing over the exterior finishes.
Okay, sir, you know what, Mr. Fern, you can deal with staff on this. We're in the middle of a public hearing, so we can't, I
realize that, but I guess my question was that
the committee does not the committee makes decisions. So I'm going to ask you to please call staff and discuss your concerns tomorrow. Thank you. Staff, members, can I have a motion deferring this item, please?
Motion to defer is requested by the applicant.
Thank you, Ms. Reddick, seconded by Mr. Taylor. All in favor? Okay, the matter has been deferred. Thank you, Mr. Fern. We'll see you again.
Thank you.
Okay, the last deferral request on the morning agenda from staff on the memo is item number 22, the last application, 8 Valois Court. And it's for a detached dwelling with an attached garage with 5 variances. And we have a request for deferral both from staff and from the agent in order to revise drawings. And the agent on this application is Kaushik Suthar.
Yeah, good morning, Chair and members. And
Morning.
I would like to defer the applications because I have the conversation with the planning, so I have to reduce the gross floor area
Mhm.
and increase the rear yard setback. So that's why I want to defer the applications.
Yes,
And we are waiting for the revised zoning comments. So once everything is done, we can come back with you.
for sure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Members, any questions for the applicant or a motion to defer, please?
I'll move to defer to continue conversations with city planning and rise the application as required.
Thank you, Ms. McCluskey. All in favor? Seconded by Ms. Roddick. Thank you. All in favor? Okay, it's unanimously deferred, and we'll see you back here again, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I think we have another request from the agent for item 21.
Okay.
So that way,
21. Let's get that up on the screen. That is item number 21 is 1935 Weston Road. We have Ida Evangelista, agent for the applicant, as well as the neighbor next door at 1937. And that's this is, I believe, with respect to a parking deficiency. Remember correctly? Yeah, it's remember 6 versus 0. 6 required, 0 being provided. Transportation and Council Nunziata were looking for a deferral. And let's get the applicant on the line. Mrs. Evangelista.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. Ida Evangelista.
Good morning. What's happening with this transportation and the council are looking for a deferral? I assume you're in agreement with that?
We are in agreement with it. It allows us additional time to negotiate with, some businesses in the area for parking spaces. I've also been in contact with Luigi. However, he's extremely busy. So this just gives us that little bit of extra time to actually determine how we can address the 6 parking spot deficiency.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And we also had a letter from and the gentleman is on the line, the owner of the property next door, who has 4 commercial units and has suffered for a long time with people using his parking spot. So he's obviously opposed to this.
Right.
Okay. So that's Medrad Ramadi or Marjan Minu on the line?
Hello, board members. Yeah, this is my daughter Mati. Actually, I've just I'm in this meeting to know about the case. There hasn't been any complaint going out from my property with regard to this file.
Okay, I see you're at 1937, so you're not the gentleman who wrote in the letter with the 4 units next door at 1927.
No, I am not.
Okay, so you're the other gentleman. You're just here. You're not opposed to this. Anyway. We're not dealing on the merits. The matter is the applicant is asked, plus the counselor and the transportation department are also asking, and the applicant has agreed to defer this matter. So we're not going to be dealing with this matter today on the merits. You will be re-notified. It will be brought back on. If you have positive or negative comments at that point, you can certainly raise them. But we're not going to be proceeding today.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, members, motion to defer. Mrs. Evangelista is in agreement with Transportation and Council Nunziata that a deferral is in order here.
I'll move for deferral.
Thank you, Mr. Komarek. Seconded by Ms. Reddick. Thank you. All in favor? Okay, madam, matter is deferred. Thank you, Mrs. Evangelista. We'll see you back here again.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and do we have item 1 back on the line, 3165 Weston?
I don't see them.
Okay, so we're just going to hold that till the end of the morning session, I guess, and we'll,
Yes.
you can remind me then.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so in that case, we're now ready. It's a little after 10 to start our first application. Item number, well, not number 1, but item number 2, 54 Fremont Avenue. We have 2 speakers on that, Maria Tahochi, the owner, as well as the neighbor, 20 Yorkley Boulevard. This is an application to maintain the existing ancillary structure shed along the southwest side of the property. There are 2 variances. We have a cover letter. We have a letter in support from 52. We have opposition, 2 letters from 20 Yorkley, a first letter and then a second submission. And we have that neighbor on the line. And the basic thing is, I guess it's supposed to be 1.46 meters from the side lot line. In this case, it's 0.14 meters, and it's already been built. So when something is already built, the committee looks at it, just to let you know, as if it wasn't built. There's no adverse or positive inference on the basis that it's already been built, either for or against. So let's hear first from the homeowner, Maria Tahochi. We also have, perhaps we have their cover letter from the applicant. Perhaps we can get that up on the board while they're speaking. And is Maria Tahochi on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Hi, so my
you
name
have
is
5
Maria
minutes to make. We have your letter up on the board for while you're speaking. You have 5 minutes to present your case, and then your neighbor will have a chance, and you'll have a chance to respond.
Okay, thank you very much. So my name is Maria Tahochi. I live and I'm the owner of 54 Fremont. Dear committee members, thank you for your time and attention today. I apologize in advance if I sound a bit scripted. I have to read my statement today because I had a baby 12 days ago and I haven't had much sleep. So I wrote down all my points not to miss anything. I have lived in this neighborhood for 7 years and have great relationships with all the neighbors that have lived here for many years. The only neighbor that objects to my application, I actually don't know at all, since she hasn't even moved into the property that she purchased 2 years ago. Like I stated in my application, I did not intend to violate any bylaw. When I purchased my property in 2015, I had a large shed in the same place. However, its platform was wooden and it rotted during the pandemic. I finally decided to replace it with a more solid structure, but still small enough that doesn't require the building permits from the city. Since the old shed was in the same place for ages, and old neighbors can confirm to that, couldn't imagine this would be a problem. I also checked with High Park architects who mistakenly told me that in Etobicoke you can build right on the property line. So the situation I find myself is quite tricky. My lot is a corner lot with very big frontage. So majority of my property is grass on both sides of Yorkley and Fremont. So it's like having 2 massive front yards. Nothing can be built on either side. The space that I maintain but cannot really use for outdoor livable space. And that is about 70% of my outdoor property. My only usable outdoor space is a small backyard that I fenced last year in the midst of COVID to enjoy the outdoor and keep my family healthy physically and mentally. We had to use stone and wood to level out the surface in the backyard, given the steep hill of the property. We now enjoy a small deck that we can have meals outdoors, a hot tub, and a sauna. Sauna is especially important in our culture, as we believe in the great health benefits it brings. As you can imagine, it's very upsetting to have a large lot and not be able to use it for the health benefits of my family. So we kindly ask that you allow these minor variances so we can fully enjoy our property. In the application, I've included pictures so you can see the challenges we face with our lot. It's not necessarily sized to accommodate. We discussed our application with the planning department, and they said that they will not object or comment on the application. And we also recently had approved similar setback variances for a house across the street at 8 Yorkley as minor variances. I also would like to mention that the original notice of violation, the city was mistakenly stating that the setback was only 1 foot, which we thought we were only in violation by half a foot. And we originally wanted to potentially just cut the corner of this build because it's only one corner that's too close. However, we decided to go with the application to the Committee of Adjustment to avoid compromising the structural integrity of the build. Also, if I attempted to move the new build, it would potentially likely violate other bylaws like being 2 meters away from the house, etc. Also, if we lower the current structure only by 30 centimeters, it would actually fall under this particular bylaw of only 1 foot setback. However, if I make these changes, it won't necessarily optically change anything except increase my cost. We discussed our application with both affected neighbors and initially had verbal support from both neighbors. Now one neighbor is objecting the application. It's very disappointing since when I asked for her original support, she said she will support. And then later she emailed me saying that she wants something in return. She wants me to pay for half of the fence. I didn't reply to the email because I don't appreciate the unfriendly tactic used. Generally, I would pay for it, no problem, but I didn't appreciate that. And I didn't submit her letter in the beginning because I wanted to take a higher road. But I'm mentioning it now to clarify why initially I stated that I had support from both neighbors. And I'm here to answer any other questions you might have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. And you're almost exactly at 5 minutes, so thank you for that. So now we're going to hear any questions for the homeowner. So I take it you built, just one question, you built it, you had an old shed and you built it right on the same footprint as the new one. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that other shed was there when did you build it or was there when you bought the property?
When I bought the property, it was there. It was the bottom was wooden. So I made it concrete and but it's in exactly same spot.
Thank you. Okay, and I see Mr. Komarek has a question for you.
Sorry, I just had a question with regards to height. I believe the applicant had mentioned that she may want to lower it, but I don't see a height variance on the notice. Are you under the impression, ma'am, that it doesn't meet the bylaw?
So the original notice of violation by the city stated that I was in violation only by 1 foot, like that the requirement is 1 foot. And I'm only half a foot away.
I'm not speaking.
Anyway, yeah, we already established that was wrong. Mr. Komarek is asking if there's a height issue. It looks, I mean, let's pull up the neighbor's picture. It does look like it's high, but there's no height issue.
There's no height issue. It's just it fell under that bylaw because of the height.
Okay, because to me the height looks like, for at least from the angle that, and it's also, you know, you take a picture, it's maybe the way the angle of the camera was, but it does look kind of high, but it's not a variance.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I believe what you're saying is if the structure were lower, then the setback would only be 1 foot. But because of its height, the setback requirement is greater than 1 foot.
Oh, okay. Is that the case? I didn't know that. That's very interesting. So if it was, that's very interesting that setback changes, the side yard setback as the height. Is that correct, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
I was unaware of that.
Mr. Komarek, where do you?
That's my understanding. I mean, I built a similar shed next to my neighbor, and I was told it was a 1 foot setback, but it's not as high as that one.
So this case is 1.46. Okay, so let's transition over to the neighbor, and what I want to hear from the neighbor, and we have your 2 letters, and I appreciate your submission, and your photo, I guess, is not as far along as the other photo we just had up. The photo attached to your letter, which shows that still the cladding had not been attached. And it actually looks higher in your picture because for some reason. But what we need to hear from you, ma'am, as I mentioned at the outset, the neighbor is...
Chiara Mondelli at 20.
Right, okay, so what we're going to want to hear from you is how you're prejudiced by, you know, sometimes if it was over by 4.5 feet or whatever it's supposed to be, how would that improve your situation looking at it? And wouldn't it just allow, you know, a place for garbage to collect? Like, would you be better off if it was moved over a few feet?
Well,
you're still going to have to look at it. So anyway, go ahead. You have your 5 minutes, but that's what I would certainly want to, you know, given especially it's already been built, but we take no adverse or positive inference on that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the floor is yours, ma'am. You let us. We'll pull up your letters as you're speaking.
Thank you, and I want to thank the committee for their time in looking at this matter. Now, just to give you a brief history, yes, I purchased the home, 20 Yorkley, in the spring of 2020. And I noticed that the structure was just being built at this time. And my first impression was that, as you've all mentioned, a little too tall and very close to the fence there. So I did put an inquiry into the city because, like, what do I know? So I put an inquiry just to find out if my prediction was confirmed. So, and they did. And so someone did come out to the property to look at it and confirm what I had said. And as they pointed out, and it's in the bylaw, that the structure should have been 1.46. The existing shed is located 0.14 meters from the southwest side, a difference of 1.32 meters, which is not a little. I mean, I think if it was just a little, I probably would have let it go, but it's significant. That's quite a bit of a distance. So I wanted to mention that, which is, I guess, a total disregard for what the city has laid out in its regulation. Concerns, and I've checked with my own design team, that's because I'm undergoing a huge reno right now. With the shed where it's currently placed, doesn't allow for proper drainage, proper grading between the two properties, which are a concern. And with my own reno project, I mean, I'm being very mindful of following every step that I need to in carrying out my own project and gaining, whatever necessary permits, costs that have afforded to this. I mean, the owner didn't approach me until I had someone from the city go look at it. So she approached me well after that and asking me to support, which at the time, again, I hadn't started anything. But now that I have my own renos and the cost that I'm putting out, which is quite a bit, I would have expected something well before that, before anything had even gone up, even though something had been there before. So that's basically my take on everything. I would like it moved to at least the proper distance. Again, I should have been consulted with this way before. Her only excuse was that her brother was, at the time, she said it was an architectural student, I think, and didn't take the necessary steps to look in building the shed, so permits and so forth, and which seemed like a very lame excuse with me, because having a brother who's an architect, that's one of the first things they teach you. So anyways, that is my general spiel.
Okay. Again, I'd like to hear from you. And I asked you at the beginning to please let us know how you're prejudiced, other than you mentioned drainage or grading, that if it was moved over 4 feet, typically it's, sometimes, and we already heard the homeowner admitted why she was on the same footprint. She didn't realize, mistakes happen, but the question, we're not a punitive body. So we're forced to look at it as if it hadn't been built. And I just wanted to hear from you in your own words why it's worse if it was, like I said, you still have to look at it. If we can get your second picture, the one already with the cladding. I think it looks better when now it's been cladded. There were 2 pictures, and staff had the first picture up on the board. If we could look at the second picture rather than looking at our smiling faces.
Sure. You have 2 versions there.
Questions I'd like to know, if it was moved over the additional 1.3 meters, as you mentioned, which is correct, to comply with the bylaw, how would you be in a better off? You'd still be looking at it, just wouldn't be. That's what I was more concerned about. Not why she didn't follow the right steps and should have heard no because of the sun. The issue is it's a fait accompli. We look at it as if it wasn't there, and how are you prejudiced by it being there as opposed to 4 feet over?
Well, my yard is not really that much bigger than my neighbor's. So when you walk up the side there, that's the first thing you see. And it makes everything feel so enclosed, like with my own yard as well. So, I mean, because it's pretty tall when you look at it. So to have it moved over, at least that'll give it some, some distance away from the fence that's there. So.
Wonderful. Okay, so any Questions for Ms. Mondelli, the neighbor? Mr.
Just a quick question. The previous shed that was there, was it the same height or was it lower?
I did not see that shed, so I can't really comment on what was there before because, as I said, the property was bought around this time 2 years ago.
Okay, so you don't really know what the existing situation was prior to this?
No, I have no idea. No. Nor did she tell me that there was a shed there before. She never told me there was a shed, so.
Mr. Mayor, perhaps the applicant in her rebuttal can respond to that question. But this neighbor, I think, just bought it 2 years ago, so I guess it wasn't there when she first came on scene. Okay, any other questions for Ms. Mondelli, or so we'll go back to the applicant for her rebuttal? Maria Tihachi.
Yes, so to answer your question, the other shed, probably the highest point was similar, but it was one of those that had a tilting roof. You know, it was like probably looked smaller because it didn't have a flat roof, but it was about the same size, maybe a bit smaller. And the reason I didn't talk to the neighbor before I built this is because she didn't own the property when I started building it. I talked to my other neighbor who lived there for many years, and she had no concerns, as she stated in the support letter of the application. I would like to address a few other things she mentioned. I never told her that my brother was an architectural student. It's the High Park architects that gave me this advice, that it was fine to build on the property line. It was a verbal advice, so I don't have anything in writing. And also, she mentions drainage issues, which I don't understand how they can be a problem since she's higher than me. All the water is flowing towards me, and I don't have any drainage problems currently, and I haven't had since the build. So also, like, if you guys don't support my application, I think I would have to just lower the structure by 30 centimeters to comply with that 1 foot setback. So it's not going to necessarily move it away from her. I'm going to have to cut the corner that's too close. The other corner is not close enough. So it'll just be like 1 corner cut, and it will increase my cost, and it will make it look a bit ugly and compromise the structure. But to her, it's not going to be further away. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I just noticed something actually that hasn't been raised before. And that's on the, as you look at the photo, you see there's an exhaust. Is that from the sauna that you have in there? You mentioned something about a sauna. What's that? Is that an exhaust? I can't point to it, but is there something
At
coming
the
up
back?
between the sidewall and the neighbors, the fence between the properties? Is there something there? Is there a that's cylinder, sort of a, I can't point to it, but
I don't see.
yeah, there it is. What's that?
Oh, that's the fence.
No, I see. What's behind the fence? Is there some
There's
sort of an
nothing behind the
exhaust?
fence. This is part of the fence. This fence is just stepping. It's like a stepping fence.
Okay. Does anyone else see what I thought I was looking at?
It's the fence post.
Oh, it's just the fence post.
It's a fence post, Mike. It's visually, it looks like it could be a chimney, but it's not.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's very strange. It looks like it's, and I was thinking, you mentioned something about a sauna, so I thought, well, if there's going to be steam coming out, then that close
It's
to
a
the
dry
property.
sauna. It's a dry sauna.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so any follow-up questions for either the applicant or the neighbor, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? And thank you for those presentations, both parties. Mr. Kumarik?
Yeah, I'm satisfied that this is fairly minor in nature, and I believe there is the height issue as well, but I'm satisfied that neighbors made reasonable effort, and it doesn't make sense. I mean, she could get around this by cutting the corner and dropping the height, and it really won't have any visual change to the neighbors. So therefore, I'm willing to support this and would like to move for approval.
Thank you. We have a seconder for that motion, Ms. Reddick. Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. You have your approval. Thank you, and thank you to the neighbor as well.
Oh, just sorry, a footnote. I believe Forrester was asking for a condition too, but I see no reason to impose that condition.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, we have the agent here for item 1.
Okay. Okay, so let's return to the first item. 3165 Weston Road. It's an application for we wanted to find out from the applicant, first of all, it's a request for a deferral from community planning, but I just don't understand the variance. So if you could briefly tell us why we're here in any event.
Yeah, sure. Good morning, myself, Hetal, and unfortunately, I got a message from the planning department, and that's why I was not earlier not available. But right now I'm here. I'm here for 3165 Western Road, and my client having a single dwelling unit, and he wants to convert this into second dwelling unit. Right now, currently the main floor, I would say it's a one-story bungalow, and it has a 93.75 square meter area for the single dwelling, and the basement area is equally 93.75 square meter area, and he wants to convert this into second dwelling. And I think for the chapter 150, the clause is saying that for secondary suite interior floor area, the interior floor area of the secondary suite for all secondary suite where the more than one is permitted must not be more than 45% of the interior floor area of the dwelling unit. So, but in this case, we would like to convert the basement area completely secondary unit and would like to have a separate entrance, which is already been there. We have already applied for the parking enlargement also. So once you give this, so secondary unit, the requirement will be fulfilled. But if you can give us as per the chapter 150, 10, 40, 40 area, floor area, this is not 45%. Even if I divide it into half also, it is not gonna justify for the secondary dwelling.
Okay, in any event, the community planning is asking to be deferred today. Are you in agreement with that?
I would say, sorry, sir, but in this case, I am using 100% of the basement area, which is like, exactly same first floor area and converting in this one. Even I know the zoning, particularly that zoning area is for not, it's for zoning is like RM zoning. So we would not be able to, but I would like to fight for that, to at least give us the opportunity to have a secondary dwelling. I don't want to defer. I don't know. Even if they do the zoning review, it's gonna be the same thing. It's not gonna, change something.
In any event, I asked my first question was why it should be 50% of the proposed interior floor area of the second will be 50% if it's the same. I'm asking staff why it says 100%. Can staff comment on that? And then we have a neighbor on this as well, but then we have to talk about the issue of the deferral, whether we should be proceeding or not. Madam Secretary Treasurer?
Hello?
Ms. Bartosik, are you there? Any other staff member? Mr. Carvalino on the line? I'm just wondering about this variance.
Sorry, my computer was frozen. I'll look into that.
Okay, I just don't know. So the issue is the reason for community planning is they're saying that there's missing information.
No, they asked for a zoning review.
Okay, well, perhaps they also
the applicant wants to proceed on the waiver,
yeah, I don't understand. She proceeded by waiver,
which they're entitled to do.
Yeah, okay, but do you agree that there's some issue with this variance? How can the proposed interior floor area of the secondary suite be 100%? I think it should say 50% at 45 point, half of the 93.75. How can it be 100%? Maybe that's what they're asking for the zoning review.
I think the way it's being interpreted, and maybe the applicant can confirm, is that there's no true main suite. They're both going to be secondary suites.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, it does say the proposed interior floor of the secondary suites will be 100%.
Yeah.
wouldn't, I guess, because if there's no primary and if secondary because they're the same size?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the reason. Okay, so committee members, we've heard the applicant wants to proceed. I question the variance, but maybe it is correct. Do you agree we should proceed? Let's have a vote on that, whether we defer or proceed today.
Can I just do a follow-up question to staff? I mean, by saying there's no secondary suite, then in effect, is what the applicant asking for a duplex?
Yes, yes, it is. It will be the duplex.
Because if you're asking for a duplex, then that's why planning wants to look at a zoning issue.
Your
It
question
could
to the
be,
staff?
but the applicants asked not to defer. They want, if it turns out that the applicant is incorrect when they apply for a building permit, they will have to reapply at a full cost and wait the time again. So that's a chance that she seems to be willing to take.
I just want to make sure the applicant understands that if we grant this variance and what she actually needs is a rezoning for a duplex, then this becomes useless. But that's I guess the applicant's risk.
Or let's say, is there any chance to get the secondary dwelling up, or no?
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Comeric. She's taking a risk, and I don't know if there's some way by a short deferral to make sure she doesn't have to lose her fee, pay again. Maybe there's some way to make it 0.01, so instead of 50/50, it's 50.1 and 49.9, in order to make it a primary and a secondary suite, or how planning. But planning obviously wants to take a look. This applicant, I don't know, is proceeding by way of waiver. So, ma'am, we're going to give you the chance to either defer or proceed today. If you proceed today and the committee grants your variance and they turn out there's an issue with what we've been discussing, you'll have to start all over from scratch. So it's up to you. Please make let us know if you'd like to proceed or not.
I would like to proceed.
Okay. Committee members, let's make that vote then based on the fact that the applicant would like to proceed and she knows the risks involved. Motion to proceed. Someone make a motion either to defer or to proceed, please. I can't see everyone's face on the screen if they're putting their hand up. So just go ahead and there we go. Mr. Taylor?
Yes, I'll move to proceed.
Thank you, sir. Seconded by? Seconded by?
I think there is no seconder.
Oh, no one. Oh, so there's no seconder to the proceeding today. Okay. In that case, the motion fails. Going to have another motion.
I'd like to pass a motion to defer.
Okay.
I believe planning needs to properly address what it is that we're looking at here.
Are you deferring in order to obtain a zoning review?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. A seconder for that?
Oh, I agree. I move to, or I second that rather.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. The matter is deferred. We'll see you back here. Oops.
Mr. Chairman, I am sorry to interrupt.
Hold on. I realized there was Mr. Gardner was on the line. His opinion may have not mattered, and it's just a matter of deferral. But perhaps we should just weigh in with Mr. Gardner and apologize for not including him in this. Mr. Gardner.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Sorry for in all the zeal and all the excitement, I forgot that you were on the line on this matter. But again,
I've been forgotten about these issues quite a bit. But I'm glad we're making some sort of progress.
Okay, so I don't know if would have been in favor of a deferral or not, but it probably makes a lot of sense that just so we have the right thing before us, because there is some confusion. So this matter is being deferred. You will be re-notified when it is put back on the agenda. And in the meantime, I guess if you need other information, if you could, speak to your neighbor or their agent about this. But this matter will be deferred in order to get a proper zoning review to correctly identify the variance or variances necessary to do what the applicant's trying to do here.
I have a couple questions. Has there been a permit taken out on this place previously to this? Because I understand, or I know that this homeowner purchased the property a year ago, March, and there's been extensive work done on it since then. And I've never seen any permit displayed for that. And now I understand they're turning it into a duplex. And there's property boundary issues. There's parking issues, I'm sure. It goes on to Weston Road. And this is a residential neighborhood.
Right. Okay, so again, this is...
You don't deal with grades, etc., but will those issues all be addressed at the next permit application?
Well, yeah, when it's brought back and all the city departments have a chance to comment, I don't know if it looks like transportation. I don't know if they've weighed in on this matter. Do you have anything from transportation? It looks like we don't, but when an application is brought, or in this case is going to be brought back, it is circulated to all city departments as well as to the neighbors. So they will have a chance to opine on that. And if you have issues relating to, I think there's some transportation related issues, you can bring that up in this matter. It comes back.
I believe there's a TTC bus stop right adjacent to that property.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so like I said, we're not dealing with it on the merits today. It has been deferred. And I'm sorry we didn't weigh in with you earlier, but we wouldn't be dealing with it on the merits because of the deferral. We were just dealing with the issue of the deferral request from staff. And ultimately, even though the applicant wanted to proceed, members voted to have this matter deferred. So you will be re-notified. Sorry, sir?
Very good. And who would I contact regarding if they do get their adjustments? Do they have to establish property boundaries?
Of course they do, but you can talk to staff. You can give staff a call, Ms. Bartosik or one of her staff tomorrow to discuss this after the hearing. But of course they have to get building permits. If they don't have building permits for what they could build as of right, which doesn't sound like the case. I don't know if they're just doing some renovations upstairs or building the basement, but this matter is being deferred, so they don't have the permissions yet to do what they were trying to do to permit a secondary suite, which is the purpose of the application, which may change after the zoning review, but they are going to have a fulsome zoning review. The applicant, as I stated, proceeded without his review and self-identified the variances. So staff members have thought that it's more appropriate that staff take a look at this and identify the variances.
Has there been any permits issued on that home since last March?
I wouldn't know. You could perhaps call the building department and check that out tomorrow. Sorry, Mr. Kamarick?
You can just search that on the city's website. Go to City of Toronto building permit application and plug in the address, and it'll give you all the building permits issued in the last 2 years.
Would it be possible to have that information emailed to me?
This isn't the correct venue for that. You would have to contact Toronto Building. The Committee of Adjustment doesn't house building permit application or information on that, and it's not our purview to share that information.
Could a request be forwarded to them?
Yes,
You
sir.
have
You
to
know,
make that
you're in the
request.
middle of a public hearing. We can't sort of continue with this. You can perhaps call staff tomorrow and get some advice as to how you should proceed. Okay, we're going to have to move on, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you back here again when this matter is brought back on. Like I said, you will be notified. In the meantime, you can find out that information from contacting the building department or checking the website. Okay? Thank you. Okay, our next application is item number 5. We do have revised, 2 revised agendas. As I mentioned, a lot of the application have been revised. We have yellow notice, revised agenda sheet showing the changes made. In this case, we have that happened twice. So we're looking at the get up on the board, the second revised agenda page, an application to construct a new detached dwelling. And
Number are they on?
it's item number 5 for the ROXALINE plan. We have a new detached dwelling with a there were 9 variances. Someone's not on mute, so we're getting some interference. There were 9 variances. There are now 4, 3 of which have been revised. Planning is asking for a condition of approval to be constructed substantially in accordance with the floor plans as it relates to a single family layout. Urban Forestry is requesting conditions 2 and 5. And the speakers on this application, we have Mrs. Evangelista as the agent for the applicant, as well as the neighbors from 12 ROXALINE and 2 Royal Lee Avenue on the line to on this matter. Okay, Mrs. Evangelista, welcome.
Good morning. Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair, members. Ida Evangelista on behalf of the owners of 14 ROXALINE. So in this particular application, the neighbors, they received the notice prior to any changes being made. We have made substantial changes insofar as removing our lot coverage, reducing our FSI to 0.57. We have removed our depth variance. We have modified our length from 20.45 to 18 meters. So, and we've also made the second story platform area half the size to 11 square meters from 20.59 square meters. So the application, and this is something that we've, my colleague Gabe worked very closely with planning to make these changes. Planning are satisfied. The one thing, we are in agreement to tying the forestry conditions to the application. However, planning would like to tie the floor plan to the condition, which with respect, I disagree, because then that doesn't allow us, if we want to move a bedroom or change a bedroom to an office, if you know, they're coming to us and they're making mere speculations insofar as what it is we'll be doing with the house, and it is a single family dwelling. So the variances that you have in front of you are very characteristic to the neighborhood. It is a very modest home that we are proposing. And in closing, I respectfully submit that the variances you have in front of you do meet the OP and ZBL.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm just looking at this staff condition. I thought it was a little odd when I read it in terms of what, you know, usually they're tied to the length or the depth or the side yard or the height, because it's the height not across the whole property. But here they're doing it because they feel there's a potential for it being separated into a separate, the interior layout into a separate unit. And they talk about the basement labeled with 4 large storage areas. I don't know how large this house is. 2 rear doors on the first floor and a vast dining room on the first floor. Word vast. Kind of odd. I don't know. So I don't know what's their concern. I think, isn't the city moving to allowing you know, basement apartments and having up to more dwelling units on a single site? I just don't understand what the concern is here. In any event, we do have the neighbors on the line, so just if you want to respond to that.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to add, you know, they make reference to semi-detached, and as we know, semi-detached, I would have to go through a consent application. That's 1. 2, you know, you know, if they could be artists where they store, you know, their products, or, you know, bikes for the kids. So we can't really speculate, you know, how the house is going to be used for a single family dwelling. And we also do know that you are permitted as a right to have a secondary suite, should they ever decide to do that down the road. But right now, the application that you have in front of you is a single family dwelling.
Okay. Okay, any questions for Mrs. Evangelista, or we'll hear from the 2 neighbors and go from there? Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Taylor. Yeah, Ms. Evangelista, I was looking at I was looking at the revised agenda page on the screen as you were talking, and it does not look like the revised agenda page that I'm looking at, dated April 6th.
Yeah, there should be 2 versions. The most current one is April 6th. So perhaps
That's when it says second revised agenda page. It says right on the top, second. Can you scroll up to the top? That's not it.
That's item 8, Paul. Item
There we
5
go. That's
in
it.
the main agenda.
Oh, that, okay, yeah, okay, that's not, we're talking,
That's-
we're on
that's
item
item
5, not
8.
eight.
Wrong application. That's number 8. We're at number 5.
In the main agenda, Paul,
That's-
item
that's-
On number 5, Paul. Not
Hmm.
8. Yeah, there we go. Nope.
so scroll up,
There we
there's
go.
2 revision pages.
it.
Yeah, that's the correct one.
Yeah, as I stated at the outset, Mr. Taylor, it's been revised twice, and that's the one.
Yes, I was aware of that, but what was on the screen was confusing me, and it turned out it was because it was related to item 8.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
that's what I've been looking at right there.
We're not at item 8 yet. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so
My
thanks to
apologies,
Barry. Any
Mr. Chairman.
questions
I
on
think I'm
other
getting a little
matters?
ahead of myself.
The question has been answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the agent, or let's go to the neighbors? First neighbor is Patricia Murray at 12, right next door.
Hello?
Hello,
Can you hear us?
we can.
Okay, go ahead, Derek.
Yes, good morning. My name is Derek.
Oh, okay, you're not the speaker is changing. You're not Patricia, right?
It's my
No.
husband.
Okay. What's your name, sir?
My name is Derek Wickenden,
Okay.
and from number 12.
Okay, thank you. You have 5 minutes, sir. Go ahead.
Everything that we have reflects the April 6th latest view. In principle, we are in favor of the building. We have some concerns which we would like to see addressed. Number 1 would be the forestry memo indicating that the tree will require removal, and it's a bylaw protected tree. Questions: what will be the final disposition with the tree? Will it be trimmed back to allow the building size? Will it require removal? And who would bear the cost of such injury or removal? That is number 1. Number 2, the increased building length, the coverage, the increased coverage will result in additional runoff water.
I believe the coverage variance has been removed, sir. It's variance number what?
I have it item 6, 569-2013, 10, 20, 40, 20. 17 meters is allowed, 18 meters is requested.
Okay, that's not the coverage, that's the length, right?
Yes.
Yes. But you did mention coverage, and I was just pointing out that the coverage variance has been deleted.
Yes, you are indeed correct, sir.
Okay, so please continue, sir, because then the applicant will answer all your questions at the end.
The net coverage, despite the fact that it's within rules, will significantly increase the runoff which flows onto our property. And if we can get some sort of assurance that said runoff will be drained away, there is a storm sewer on the street, which is currently shown as not connected. If we can get some sort of assurance that that will be dealt with, then we'll be happy with that. Item 3 that I had was yes, the proposed dwelling appears like it could be separated into a second unit or separate built, which has been addressed by the applicant, and they have stated unequivocally that it's a single family dwelling. So those are the objections that we had, and I don't know the answer to them.
Okay, thank you, sir. So the committee first is going to see if the members have any questions for you. And then after that, and the other neighbor weighs in, we'll have the agent respond to your concerns that you've mentioned. Okay. So any questions for the speaker at the neighbor at next door at 12? Derek, I think we got his last name mentioned. It's different. And if none, let's then hear from the neighbor at 2 Royal Lee, Dominic Laverde.
Hello, everyone. I am an adjoining neighbor of the property. I'm also a father of the owner. I'm in favor of the application. And as far as, I mean, everybody's worried about the 2 big rooms. We are a big family, and hopefully we can fill these rooms with grandchildren. So if that's a big concern. Other than that, I'm in favor of the application, and I would like to see this move forward.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Laverde related to the applicants?
Sorry,
Okay.
you're at 2 Royal Lee Avenue, sir?
That's correct. I'm adjoining the property to the rear.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, if no questions, let's go back to Mrs. Evangelista to respond to the concerns of the neighbor at number 12.
Okay, so I would like to add that we had all the trees reviewed. The trees are going to be maintained. They're all trees that belong on adjoining properties. They will be protected. Tree protection zone will be placed around the front tree at number 12. It's a boundary tree. At the rear, the whole rear side, and along the rear back, all those trees will be protected. Do they need some pruning and some good maintenance? Yes, absolutely, which will be done. And it will be something that the owner can speak to the neighbors, and they can, you know, come up with a plan of action on how to maintain the trees, but I can assure them that they are being protected. As you mentioned, Mr. Chair, the coverage variance has been removed. Now we'll talk about drainage and runoff. As we know, all waters that happens does have to be maintained on the property. There is a lot grading and drainage plan that has to be submitted when submitting for a building permit. So if at any time the building officials feel that it will infringe on neighboring properties, it will have to be rectified prior to even receiving a building permit. So I can assure you that all water runoff will be maintained within the property at number 14.
Okay, and then he meant the length variance that's been reduced to a 1 meter variance, I believe, correct? He did mention length.
The length is 1 meter variance, which which planning staff is happy with.
Okay, any follow-up questions for Mrs. Evangelista or for the neighbor for that matter, or is someone ready for motion? Mr. Taylor?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I find the variances requested meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act. I'm referring to revised agenda page dated April 6th, and the variances are number 2, 5, 6, and 7. I move approval subject to the Community Planning Department condition and Urban Forestry conditions 1 and 2.
Thank you. There was a seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion. Ms. Ruddick, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mrs. Evangelista, and thank you to the neighbor at number 12. And the neighbor at number 2 as well, the father-in-law. Okay, next application then is number 6, 43 Edgecroft Road. It's an application to convert the attached garage into habitable space and construct a new detached garage and a swimming pool in the rear yard. There are 5 variances. We have 3 sets of supporting materials. We have a previous decision on the property from January 2014. Different owners at the time about renditions. We have photos and renderings and the supporting materials regarding the lap pool length and information in support of that, as well as we have a letter of support. And the Urban Forestry is requesting condition number 1, and we only have the one speaker, Neil Ironside, architect for the applicant. Mr. Ironside, welcome.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Go ahead. I'm here to represent the owners of the property. I know the committee's time is valuable. I'd like to make an abbreviated presentation, perhaps. I did submit my presentation notes to the committee so they can see in more detail why we think this is a minor variance.
Yeah, we'll put that up on the screen as you speak, and you can be brief.
Okay.
There's no one here in opposition, so.
There is no one that's registered as an objector?
Correct.
Correct. I know the owners have polled the neighbors, and the neighborhood is basically in support of the project, including, importantly, the adjacent properties. The problem that the house presents is that the garage is a barrier between the house and the back and access to the backyard. So the need here is to provide access, direct access, and visual access to the backyard. And to do that, we're proposing to convert the 2-car garage into a family room, which would then connect to the kitchen, and to build a separate freestanding 1-car garage in the back corner of the property. And that leaves us with a space that's available for a pool, which the point of the pool is as an exercise pool, not as a splash pool. And the 30-foot length of the pool is one of the determinants of the design. So the project merits are that what we've done is we haven't increased the volume of the house at all. We're providing direct access to the backyard. The 1-car garage partially screens the pool from the adjacent neighbors. And specifically looking at all the variances, the pool side yard setback is necessary in order to get the 30-foot length. If we were to comply with the bylaw, then it would be 6 feet shorter. And we don't feel, given the landscaping and the position of the pool, that intrusion of the pool into the required setback is significant. It's 5 foot 8 inches, which is visually insignificant in landscaping terms and very important in terms of exercise terms.
Yeah, can we get his plan up on the board? The site plan, part of his materials. And I do see you have the 7 letters of support, and most importantly, from the neighbor at 116 Uno.
Yes, we've provided them with drawings of what the work would look like from there.
Yeah, so that's a good example. And the fact that you're putting in a pool in this and you don't have neighbors here objecting is, I guess, quite the compliment to you.
We worked hard on this, and my clients are very, very keen on keeping the neighbors happy.
Yeah, so, and I see how your garage that was blocked, the backyard where you couldn't, so it makes sense what you're doing, taking out the garage, putting in a family room and moving the garage to the rear. So if your neighbor at 116 is okay, who are we to complain? Let's turn it over to the committee members and see if they have any questions for you, Mr. Ironside, or if someone's ready for a motion.
I have a question, if I may, Mr. Chair. I don't see any comments from transportation. Have they chimed in with you at all?
They haven't. They would have been circulated the drawings, but we're actually moving the driveway farther away from the intersection, which would, I think, have been their main concern.
But normally I would see some comments about closing up and opening up curb cuts, and I don't see that.
I presume it was circulated to them. The fact there are no comments would mean no concern.
Nonetheless, you'd still need to agree to close up the old curb cut at your expense.
That would be correct. That would be a condition of the permit.
And can we get that drawing back up? I thought I saw a tree located in the new curb cut area, but perhaps I was mistaken.
There is an existing tree, and the starting point of this entire design was to get assurance from Urban Forestry that they would that they agree that the tree could be that there was a reasonable hope of success of keeping that tree that's existing.
Because it looks right in line with where you would have your new driveway.
The driveway is to the side of it.
Just to the, just offset a bit, okay.
And we hired an arborist. We provided an arborist report to Urban Forestry, and there's a condition now, I think, with this application that it'll be tied to approval of
Yep.
urban forestry. I've just got a note from my client. There is actually no curb where the new driveway is. It's curbless.
Oh. Is there a curb cut for the existing driveway?
I'm sorry, I should know
That's
that.
okay, but that could explain why there's no comments, so
Yeah.
sorry. That's fine. I'm willing to, unless anyone else has any questions, I'm willing to put forward a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Believe it meets the 4 tests, and I would therefore propose approval subject to forestry condition 1.
Okay, thank you, sir. Motion for approval, Mr. Comeric, seconder for that. Mr. Taylor, thank you. Any comment? Okay, all in favor? Okay, your application is unanimously approved.
Thank you very, very much.
Enjoy their new pool.
Well,
Okay, next application is item number 7. Oh, do you want members would like to take a break, or let's do one more and we'll take a break? How's that? Number 7 is 26 ELSFIELD. It's an application to construct a 1-story addition along the southwest side of the dwelling, a 2nd-story addition, a new front porch, and a deck in the rear yard. And there are 5 variances. We have photos. Planning is asking for a condition of approval, substantially in accordance with the site plan regarding the north side setback, and they don't say construct as illustrated. They use the old precedent wording of substantially in accordance. We have 2 letters of support, 1 letter of opposition. And in the additional materials, we have an opposition letter from 28 right next door. As well, we have Urban Forestry requesting condition number 1. We have 2 speakers, the agent, Raman Sandhu, for the agent for the applicant, and then we have Ms. Murray next door at 28 ELSFIELD, who wrote in the letter in the additional materials. So let's start off with Mr. Sandhu.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. So this application is for, essentially, it is an existing 3-level side split. The proposal, not 3-level, it's a bungalow with a room on the garage, existing. The proposal is to make a 2-story house. We are filling up the space behind the garage as visible in the site plan, and we are extending 5 feet 8 inches into the rear backyard, which is not triggering any length or depth issues. The variances include 37.8% of the lot area. We are allowed 33, so we are over that by 14 to 15%. There's a side yard setback on north side. However, it is existing, so we are just going into the line of the existing addition. The GFA, yes, we are going 0.74 instead of 5, but there is already precedence in the neighborhood. Now the parking space in the garage, it's an existing parking space. We are not altering it by any means. We are keeping it as is, but it's an additional variance. The last one is height. So it's a flat roof house. Its old bylaw allows 6.5 meters. The newer one says 7.5 meters, but it's not passed through all the, I guess, panels or committees. So it is still up there for discussion, but we are good as per if the new bylaw comes in. So these are the 5 variances we have. The 6th one is just an advisory note. By our opinion, these variances are minor in nature, and they pass the 4 tests of the Committee of Adjustment as well. The opposition from the neighbor is, because we know we have one neighbor who is next door. She has a chimney, and her main opposition is due to the chimney height. She says that if we go 7.5 meter with the flat roof, it's gonna all interfere with her chimney. But essentially, in the area, if you do a pitch roof, you can go way higher than that. And the new bylaw which is gonna come, it's gonna allow the height. Anyways, she's fine with the GFA as stated in her letter. She's opposing on the lot coverage, which is minor, only 14.5%. So that's my presentation. I'm open to questions if you have any.
Okay. Any questions for the agent?
Two brief questions, if I may, Mr. Chair. The lot coverage, is that an existing situation, and are you doing a straight top up with no increase on the ground floor?
No, actually, there is increase on the ground floor. The
You see his
existing house
plan.
was
Staff, can we
Okay.
get the agent's plan up on the board? It shows you showing the variances, but can we get the plan up? There's a site plan showing the increased floor area. Yeah, I think it shows it in the first pic, shows the increased area shaded. There we go. Proposed extension, cross-hatched. There we go.
Thank you.
Okay, let's leave that up on the board when we hear from the, as we hear from the neighbor. The neighbor here is the neighbor from 28 ELSFIELD, who just wrote in on the additional materials, which is not the applicant in item 9, which is 28 ENFIELD. I was a little confused at first, thinking, hold on, they're the applicant to the next application, but not the case. So let's hear from the neighbor, Ms. Murray at 28 ELSFIELD.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks to the committee for having this opportunity. The existing, the whole street actually was a subdivision of 1.5 stories. So each one has a room over the garage. I understand that was quite common as a tax dodge. So it wasn't actually 2 stories. It's just one room over the garage. So it's not the 3 stories that Mr. Sandhu first was mentioning. And I think there's another neighbor also objecting, David Edwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a letter, but he's not here in person to speak today.
Right. So he's objecting on a number of grounds. So I hadn't been aware of that until your link. My neighbors had to pay close to $20,000 in order to replace their entire furnace and the venting and the fireplace. So it's really a mirror image across the street. I know that the owner is a very nice person, has talked with all the neighbors and is quite aware of what went on at 27 ELSFIELD and the expense. And I've attached, some of their price quotes that they had to do was a couple of years back. So my understanding is that it is within 10 feet, and the regulation is not to be less than 2 feet above the highest surface. The reference I was given is Building Code 9.21, 4.4, subsection 1. I'm not a
Staff, can we
safety
get the
expert,
letter of
but
objection on the board? Sorry, just for a second. Perhaps we can get your letter up. It's in the additional materials while Ms. Murray is speaking. Thank you.
yeah, just you can see how close my garage. As you know, a lot of these were mutual little pathway to skittle back to the backyard, and people sometimes have shared gates and all that. That's very common in this neighborhood. So you can imagine how close my furnace is to their garage. And I, worried about safety and my expense now. I don't know if it's possible that there's some kind of distance agreement under the building code. I don't have any difficulty with the deck or the porch. In general, I'm in favor of intensification, but I don't see how I should be adversely affected. And which of the tests that does not meet, I think that the city zoning code is clear and the bylaw is clear to be maintained, and the general purpose of all this planning effort is to avoid these kinds of conflicts.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions for the neighbor, or else let's go back to the applicant for his rebuttal. She sort of touched on at the outset. I guess the issue is the issue of the downdraft, or seems like a building issue as opposed to a committee issue, whether there's some issue with respect to the chimney. So I think the agent touched upon that. Perhaps he can continue. Mr. Sandhu?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So the requirement of the distance from where the chimney outflow is to any neighboring property windows is usually 10 feet as per the Ontario Building Code, but this is a building code issue. Bylaw does not speak into this issue at all. And the second thing is, there are additions in that area, as the respected neighbor mentioned, that it's quite intensive. 2 houses down, there are 2 houses which are built full up all the way without any problem. So yeah, I mean, it's not really a bylaw issue, so we can't really speak into that at the moment.
Okay. Panel members, any questions, follow-up questions, or is someone ready for a motion? We do have an urban forestry condition number 1 here, and a staff condition. Planning staff. Mr. Taylor.
Yes, I'm prepared to make a motion, Mr. Chair. I'm satisfied that the concerns about the chimney and its height and location, et cetera, are not planning issues. They're building code issues, and they will be addressed and resolved at the building permit stage. On the issues before us, I find the variances meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I move approval subject to the Community Planning Department condition and Urban Forestry condition 1.
Thank you, sir. The seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion, please. Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Sandhu, and thank you to the neighbor at 28 who weighed in as well. Okay, so how about we take a 10-minute break? Return at 11:20 with everyone's permission. Okay. Okay, welcome back. Ready to get started again. Next item, item number 8. We again have a revised agenda page highlighted to show the changes from the original application. This is to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage, and the new dwelling will contain a secondary suite. There were 8. Now there are 4 variances, 2 of which have also been revised. We have a revised zoning waiver and revised plans and associated with the revised agenda page. We have a cover letter. We have the applicant's revisions. Planning is recommending refusal of the application. And we have opposition from 94 17th Street across the street. That was prior to the revisions, and they mentioned the 8 variances. They mentioned that 0.76 FSI is acceptable to them, but 8.83 is what the request is now after the revisions. And Urban Forestry is requesting condition number 4. And in the additional materials, we have a revised notice, but it looks like it's the same as the one in our package. Perhaps staff can confirm that. And as well, we have a letter of support from 95 right next door in the additional materials. So we have one speaker on this application, Marina Stevanovic, the agent for the applicant. Welcome.
Oh, good day, and thank you very much for your time today given to me as an agent, as well as the member of the family of the owners. I try to support my family and main applicants because it's a young family with children and baby on the go. So it is kind of very critical matter in timing to move forward with kind of decisions or construction with the new condition for the family. So just to explain that why we are a little bit pushing this meeting to happen today with some last minute submission of the all kind of information and to represent our willingness to lean with every demands that is advised from your panel. So I believe that we have done so much that we just have only few concerns that we couldn't really do any better. And main thing is, as a few days ago, the forestry department from the city sent us letter of concern about city tree, which is located at the front of the house. Due to this reason, also from the concern that we represented the side entrance to the secondary suite on the side of the house, which is north, was not safe enough from your panel, even though it wasn't variant. We agree with that. So in the latest submission, we have decided to move this side entrance to the center of the building. And with this move, we also provided that to eliminate the walkway around the tree. And with this condition now, we have very minor, insignificant concern from the forestry and from the arborist report that only 5% of the area around the tree may be injured. And so far they gave us green light that we can keep the tree in safe manner, do construction, and to not to worry about the future. I think with this move of the entrance for the secondary unit, we gain 2 problems solved. And I would now move to the facts that we still have a little bit of problem with space index being 0.82 with the fact that this is the only lot in the street that was at the past divided, and one part of the lot was sold to the neighboring house, building rental property. So we may say that our house is not really massive in footage or square meters, but because this is the only lot which was injured in the past, our space index is bigger. But the house itself is 240 meters, and it's not really overwhelmed for the family with at least 2 kids. And that is why I'm kindly ask the panel to understand that our space index is slightly bigger just because of the lot was being severed and sold to somebody in the past. And from there, we have the same problem about rear setback being 6.2 meters, and not 100% of the back, only maybe less than 50% of the house is extended to this 6.2 meters instead of 7.5. The main reason, and why one of the real reasons why we have done this way, because the neighboring new building that is just recently in the process of being finished has really way bigger extent to the backyard, and it's really 2-story plus.
Hey, ma'am, you're over time. I wasn't able to see the clock, but they just changed the view so I can see you're
I'm
on
going
for
to
5
finish in
minutes.
2
If you could
seconds.
please wrap up.
Yeah.
The last 2 minutes, I don't know what you've been. You're aware that planning has a negative report. They recommend refusal, so I thought you would have paid a little more attention to that. But in any event, let's see if members have any questions for you. We did have the letters of objection that I referred to in the negative planning report. They mentioned the issue about the driveway, but I'm still not clear about where it is. I believe now that you've relocated it in order to not have variances, staff is concerned that it's facing onto the adjacent neighbor's driveway, and they requested that the secondary suite entrance be internalized or located at the rear for safety, and that you declined to make such changes. So can you just clarify for me, you have eliminated the variances, but where you've now placed the secondary entrance is not to community planning's liking. I also want to point out a slight difference between the variances referred to in the planning report, and I saw it up on the screen, at 0.83 and 3.97 is actually 1% off. I believe it's 0.82 and 3.96. So they're just off by a slight amount for some reason in their communication of the changes that you did make. So can you just comment briefly on, is the location of the secondary entrance now in the position that staff still has that concern, even though it's eliminated variances?
Mr. Chair, there were 2 sets of revisions. The one in your original package is what planning addressed in their report. So then there was a second revision in your additional materials dated April 19th.
Okay.
But the applicant will
Yeah, I was asking, I mentioned that, I asked whether that revised one was the same as in the package, but I guess it was very slightly different by 0.1. Because I looked at it briefly, and that was my question, whether the one in our additional materials was the same as the other one, the other revised one. The highlighted one up on the screen.
No, it's they made more changes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this that would be my question about where the driveway is, and then see if committee members have any questions for you. Ms. Stevanovic?
Yes.
I'm just asking you, is the new location or the now new location of the secondary entrance where planning has problems with it? Because they feel it faces onto the neighbor's driveway.
Yeah.
Just a yes or no answer.
it is new location and it is located in the center of the property on the side wall. We introduce more room for so there is a new set of drawings that maybe we are not allowed to show at the moment, but the main entrance is now located on the side wall in the center between the
Okay,
garage.
so you didn't locate it either at internalized or located at the rear, right? So it's where community planning does have problems. It is
There's a new set of drawings in the added material that reflects the new changes.
Yes, yes, it is uploaded, but it was uploaded on 19.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for the applicant, or is someone ready for a motion?
Yeah, this is exactly the new set that is showing that the entrance is now in the center of the left side of the driveway and on the side in front of garage.
Okay.
Which is largely way better and more safe for, we don't have conflict with the neighbor, everything is clear there, and this is concerned.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or is someone ready for a motion? Mr. Merrick? I saw Stan, your hand up went first. Are you ready to weigh in, or is Donald?
Don can go. My inclination was to defer this, but let's see where Don's going to go.
Defer it after hearing. Okay. Anyway.
Undue influence.
Mhm.
My inclination is to respect the community planning department's take on this application. They've identified 5 issues. The revised application addresses some of them in a very small way, and I don't think it's significant enough to satisfy our planning department. FSI, rear yard setback, side exterior main wall height, and the location of the secondary suite entrance door facing the neighbor's driveway. So I'm going to determine in my mind that the application does not meet the 4 tests, and I move refusal.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I have a seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion. Ms. Reddick, thank you. All in favor? Application is unanimously refused. Sorry, Ms. Stevanovic, the application has now been refused, and you have your appeal rights. Thank you. Next application is item number 9, 28 Enfield. Not Elsfield is in application 7, but Enfield Avenue. It's for a detached dwelling with an attached garage with 3 variances. And we have an arborist report. We have a precedent COAs. It said previous decisions, but I consider that precedent. It's decisions within 500 meter radius been submitted by the applicant. So they're not previous decisions as shown in the bookmark. And we have 15 support. Is that 15 letters of support? Yes, 15 letters of support. We have forestry comments, the arborist report, urban forestry requesting conditions 2 and 5, 5 being a refusal because of the impact on the tree. And that's all we have. The speaker on this application, we have 2, is Sibylla Welt Johnson, the agent, or Johnson Studio, Sibylla Welt, and as well the neighbor at 24 Enfield, registered to speak as well.
Mr. Chairman, sorry to interrupt. We were not able to reach the neighbor at 24 Enfield. They are not online, so it's only the agent.
Okay, thank you. Good to know that at the outset. Okay, let's hear from the agent then.
Oh, hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me? Okay. First, thank you for your time. So our application is for 3 variances that we see that similar requests were approved recently in the area. And And the only thing like with the urban forestry thing that they requested denial is that they said that we need to remove a tree, but that's not the case. All the trees are going to remain. And in the driveway, just we're going to have an encroachment because if you see the plans, there's no place to put the driveway without entering in the tree protection zone. So we will have to apply with them in any way because we will have to apply for this permit to injure the tree. But like the driveway is not subject to our request to the zoning. So that's it.
Yeah, okay.
I just would like to clarify that no, oh, sorry.
Yeah, you mentioned, so I just want to add you to comment on your coverage. It's a pretty large coverage variance. And, you know, you've given us what were listed as previous decisions, but are really precedent decisions. All you've done is listed the addresses. Just in the future, if you do this, you should list for each property what the various variances are. You didn't say, it says most of these had similar variance requests with numbers higher than what we are requesting, but you don't say, is it for floor space index? Is it for coverage? Is it for length?
Sorry.
Anyway,
sorry.
all I'm just saying is to you, it's too late now, but in the future, if you submit a letter like that, you should actually mention what those variances are rather than just a list of the addresses.
Okay, just because if you go further below, there are all the decisions are attached to this letter.
I don't see that. But anyway, the members don't have time to start going through all the decisions you should have maybe put on, but I don't see any list. Staff, I just see the one-page letter from Ms. Welt.
There was a pretty big document with a lot of, because I attached all the.
Okay, in any event.
Previous
okay,
decisions in the area, they
right.
follow the letter.
I see. Okay, for some reason on the one I have. Okay. Anyway, okay, so I guess the committee members can go through that or have gone through that to see in support of yours. So I didn't see that they were attached. Thank you. So you only have the 3 variances. We have the arborist. We have no comment from community planning, so or area neighbors. So let's. Does anyone have any questions, or we'll go and hear from the neighbor at 24. See what their concerns are.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, the neighbor at 24 is not here.
Oh, right, we don't have the neighbor, so we don't know what their concerns are. Maybe they were in support. Okay, so does anyone have any questions, or is someone ready for a motion? Mr. Comeric?
Yeah, I find the application overall does meet the 4 tests and would therefore like to move approval subject to forestry condition 1. And I'm not sure whether forestry condition 2 applies or not. So because in my notes I have that they're requesting both. So I'm going to put forestry 1 and 2. But I don't see a private tree. But for safety's sake, I'm going to say 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you. Seconder for Mr. Comeric's motion. Thank you, Ms. McCluskey. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Okay, thank you, Ms. Welts, and you have your application has been approved. Okay. Our next application is item 10 has been deferred, so move on to item number 11, which is 199 Cornelius Parkway. And this is an application for a detached dwelling with an attached garage. We have a revised highlighted yellow sheet showing changes to the variances. There were 2 variances, there still are, but they've improved variance 1, the proposed distance from the side yard setback from the south side lot line. And the FSI has been reduced slightly. No, sorry, the north side said that's the only change. We do have a covering letter enclosing the waiver and the revised plans and zoning waiver to go along with the revised application. And we only have the one speaker, Enzo Locasano. Welcome, sir.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Enzo Locasano, and I am the agent for this application. It's a very straightforward application. We're removing the existing top portion of the house, keeping the existing foundation in place and adding the garage portion to this house and creating a new dwelling. We did work with staff. Planning staff had a comment with regards to one of the corners of the garage at the rear. Again, we have enough distance at the front. The back is because it's angled. They wanted to see 1 meter instead of 0.88. So we satisfied their request for that. With regards to the height of the from the established grade to the main floor, that's existing. That's what's there now. We're not touching the main floor of the house.
Yeah, you're building.
Other than that, it's straightforward.
Yeah, only 2 variances. I mentioned that there were 4, but I don't know where I got that from. But anyway, we only have 2 variances before. I have no comment from planning or from forestry or for transportation. So let's see if members have any questions for you, Mr. Lacasano, or if they're ready for a motion.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question
Yes, go ahead.
regarding variance 1. What is the existing south side lot line? The existing building?
Sorry, I'm just below that. Existing south. That's the 1.43. That's the one we're maintaining on the house. So the 1.43 is referring to the.
Why then
Yeah,
are you requesting a variance to allow 1 meter?
No, the 1 meter
Oh,
is
on
on
the
the
north side.
garage side, which is the north side.
I'm sorry, so I'll rephrase my question. What is the
Yes.
existing north side lot line?
To the existing stucco garage.
Whatever would determine the north side lot line.
So the existing garage that we're removing, because there is an existing detached garage, is actually 0.48. But we're making that wider. There'll be a bigger distance with the new attached garage.
Okay.
You can see on the site plan, there's a dotted line that says stucco garage. That's an existing detached garage that will be removed and turned into an attached garage. So our lot line, our setback to the north lot line will actually will be improved from what's there now.
Thank you.
Sorry, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions, or is someone ready to weigh in? Mr. Taylor.
Mr. Chair, I find the variances meet the 4 tests, and I move approval without conditions.
Okay, thank you. Seconded for that, Mr. Gamorek. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Lacasano. Good seeing you again. Or not seeing
Thank
you.
you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You don't see anyone. Wonderful. Okay, our next application is item number 12, 33 3rd Street. And this is an application for a 2-story addition above the existing dwelling in a 2-story rear addition. There are 6 variances. And we have a previous decision on the property from November 2017. We have a planning report for information. And I have a quite note here that the proposed full 2nd-story addition will not doesn't result in a new condition, as the front yard setback was established in 2017 COA application that I just mentioned in approval. So that was already approved. And we only have one speaker, Tony Henriquez, agent for the applicant. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Tony Henriquez. I'm the agent for this application. We are proposing a second-story addition and a two-story rear addition. And I'd like to point out that items number 2, 3, and 4 are existing. We're not going longer than the building. We're actually going less than the building actually is. And we're not going any closer to the side yard setbacks. The only new variances that would be created here, if the committee was to approve it, would be items number 1, 5, and 6. And number 1 is the floor space index, where they permit 0.6 times, and we're just asking for 0.66, which is 6%. And items number 5, which is the main wall height, they only allow 7 meters, and we're proposing 7.06. That's about 2 inches. And item number 6 is actually related to the height with item number 5.
Okay, and as I said, the staff points out that the front yard setback was previously established in 2017 approval. Okay, committee members, very straightforward, modest 25 square meters increase in FSI. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Enriquez? There is someone ready to weigh in with a motion. There's no urban forestry or other conditions proposed.
Prepared to made with a motion to approve this application. I find it to be minor in nature and consistent with the foretest.
Thank you, Ms. Ruddick. Seconder for that motion. Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Enriquez. We'll see you again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, item number 13 is the next application. It is 2277 to 2295 Shepherd Avenue West, and it's an application to modify the allowable gross floor area for the proposed food store. There's a minimum requirement of 930 square meters, and in this case, it's going to 230, so it's actually less than the minimum. Interesting. And we just have a cover letter, nothing else on file. A 3-page cover letter from the agent. So the agent is Andrew Dales, Consulting, sorry. And we have the neighbor at 121 Parada. We're not sure. It says may not be able to attend. If he's not, don't follow up. So do we have the neighbor on the line?
I was just about to say that, Mr. Chair. The neighbor had reached out to us this morning. They will not be attending.
Okay, fine. So we just have Mr. Dales. Welcome, Mr. Dales.
Thanks. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Very straightforward. We have no conditions. We have nothing on file other than your 3-page cover letter.
Right. So I can make up some brief comments about the application. It's relatively straightforward. Not sure if you want to hear my brief presentation or if you're ready to move forward.
Just 1 minute. There's a minimum for a food store, and you're below the minimum.
That's right. This was an aspirational item that was baked into the site-specific zoning bylaw from 2013. In the final report that went to Community Council, I think the aspirational nature of the requirement was acknowledged when there was a section in this final report that says if the owner is unable to secure a grocery store tenant, the owner is able to make an application, to seek approval to reduce or eliminate the requirement.
Okay.
So that's exactly what we're doing. They made best efforts over several years to secure a food store tenant at the minimum size of 930 square meters. They weren't able to secure a tenant. They did, however, get a really great food store tenant at 230 square meters. So that's the number we're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm actually familiar in my former working life on a mixed-use approval project. There was again a requirement as the accountant for a food store, and you just couldn't get them.
You can try, but if you can't find a tenant large enough, then you just have to kind of get what you can. And in fact, my understanding is that the tenant they got is a great one. I think it's going to be a great addition to this retail plaza and a great addition to the community.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's see if anyone else has any questions or someone ready to weigh in with a motion. Mr. Komorik.
I'm good to go with a motion unless anyone has any questions.
Go ahead.
I find the application to be minor in meeting the foretest and would like to move approval with no conditions.
Thank you. Seconder for that? Mr. Taylor, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Dales.
Great,
See you
thanks very
again.
much.
Okay, our next application is item number 1456 Grovetree Road. It's for a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. And we have 6 variances. We have a revised highlighted revised notice page for the agenda. There were 6 variances. 2 of them have been revised, the length and the depth. We have the revised plans and zoning waiver, obviously a covering letter. Planning is recommending a condition of approval that be constructed as illustrated, as set out. We have a support petition signed by at least 6 residents. Ravines has condition number 1 they're requesting. TRC has no objection, but advised that a permit is certainly required before the issuance of municipal permits. And in the additional materials, we have the applicant's presentation materials, which we could perhaps get off. The agent is Ralph Bertani. Agent for the applicant, no other speakers.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Respected members, great to see you again. I hope in person real soon. I'm with RGC Design Group, and we represent the planning matters related to the new home design for the site. I'd like to begin with an overview of what we describe this project to be: a unique site located in the Thistletown, Bowman Heights neighborhood in North Etobicoke. An insightful design that fits the proportions and scale of this wonderful endeavor. The first screen that's in front of you outlines the broad framework of the large lot, the irregular size lot, both in length and breadth in its current location. The red line identifies the outer perimeters and property lines, which represent approximately 70,000 square feet of lot area, 1.6 acres. Just as an FYI, there was an application made by the previous owners for a series of new homes in this project, but that was denied by the City of Toronto. So we're reverting back to the single-family purpose that the city has created. The site is bounded by a wonderful natural and mature landscape that shoulders the property. Specifically, I refer to the Humber River to the south that borders our property line, and of course, the Thistletown Park to the north. As you can see by way of our presentation drawing, it's a very green space. The proposed home is sited behind an existing 2-story home that will be planned to be demolished. The reason for locating this house further back is to incorporate a floor plate that maximizes the widest part of the property. The benefit of this allows the owners more privacy and, of course, a better overview of the Humber River Valley corridor, protecting the mature landscape along the property lines and rear yard. As unique as the design of this home is, the setbacks are quite generous in comparison to the housing fabric located throughout the Grovetree subdivision south of us. The property is located at the north limit of the subdivision, fronting onto a cul-de-sac. Specific to the site plan, the application provides for a 42-meter front yard setback, 102-meter rear yard setback. This value is not typical in the adjoining subdivision because of the smaller lots, which maintain an average lot depth of about 35 to 40 meters, compared to our site, which has a median property depth of approximately 160 meters. Prior to completing the application to the committee, our firm made efforts to communicate with our friends in community planning and TRC officials in order to assure that the new home would not seriously violate nor impact the stable top of bank shoreline hazard risks. We successfully completed this undertaking with a series of studies in support of the reduction in side yard setbacks from 10 meters to 6. That refers to variance 6, and there's a submission in your package that speaks to that. With respect to the balance of the variances, RGC has modified the original design drawing package as per comments and discussions directed by planning staff in order to better accommodate the zoning policies that we seek relief from today. We respectfully refer the members to the report as a part of this presentation and compliment planning staff with a clear and insightful report. Pending the decision of the members, we have received and read the city's recommendations outlining recommendations numbered 1 and 2 on the same report. We, as well as our client, agree to the terms for the same. Lastly, we're pleased to report that our client is very respectful of the good neighbor policy and has met with his neighbors who reside on GROVETREE, and as such, there are 6 letters of support to your attention. Finally, Mr. Chair, members, this application, as I started out, is unique and singular, as is the design of the new home. Hence, the variances before the panel are technical in nature and follow the form of the building envelope attached to the application. Therefore, with the members' support of one of the planning tests, by seeking relief to and maintaining the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaws, 569/2013, and the Etobicoke zoning code, we respectfully submit that this minor variance application does adequately comply with all 4 tests of Section 45 of the Act. Thank you very much for your attention on this presentation, and we now kindly ask the panel for their support or any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brittani, for a good presentation, both written and verbal, even though there's no one here in opposition. You've done your homework, you have the neighbors and support on such a beautiful site, getting buy-in on that by setting it back that way. And community planning, their conditions being acceptable. So let's just see if committee members have any questions for you, or if not, if someone's ready to weigh in. Mr. Taylor.
I have a question first, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I'm just wondering, I'm having difficulty seeing, with respect to variance 1, the dwelling depth of 62.68 meters. I can't interpret that when I look at the survey. I don't see that house is 200 feet long. Can you help clarify that?
I certainly can, but I mean, I would have to speak to staff on how it's calculated. But if you look at the site plan through the chair, there's a beginning limit that's established by the city that is positioned 25 feet back from the front street line. So the distance is actually measured from there, and staff can correct. So a lot of our front yard is deemed to be included under that total length.
Yeah, that would do it. Thank you. I understand.
Okay, any further questions, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm satisfied the requested variances meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act. And I move approval subject to the planning conditions 2 and ravine condition number 1.
Interesting, there is no urban forestry. So yeah, and thank you. So we have a seconder for that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. McCluskey. All in favor? Another unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Grittani.
Thank you all for your support. Have a great day.
Sorry, Mr. Taylor, those were the 2 planning conditions, 1 and 2? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, item number 15 is 200 Jeffco Drive. Very straightforward application. It's a 1-story addition. There are 3 variances. Planning has weighed in with the conditions of approval. They want it built substantially in accordance with the site plan and elevation drawings regarding the length and depth. TRCA has no objection, but advised the permit is required before municipal permits are pulled. 5 letters of support, and the Councillor Michael Ford in support as well. So very little, nothing negative. The speaker, the agent for the applicant is Mr. Zaid Salem of Nouveau Engineering. Welcome, sir. Is this sir? Zaid Salem.
Hi, Mr. Chairman.
Hello, sir.
Yes. Yes.
Very straightforward
Mr.
application here.
Hi.
Sir, are you on the line? Can we hear you, or you cut out?
Hello, do you hear me?
Oh, much better. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. I don't believe we need a presentation from you. So can you just...
client. Okay.
Yeah. Would you like to advise the committee of anything? It's a very straightforward application. Before I see if they have any questions, I don't think we need a full
Nothing. Just my no.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Salem? And if not, is someone prepared, ready to weigh in with a motion? Subject to there's a planning condition.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, the agent had corrected their surname to staff earlier. The agent's name is Zaid Al-Mubarak, A-L-M-U-B-A-R-A-K.
Yeah, Zaid Al-Mubarak.
Just for the record.
Okay, thank you, because on my attendance sheet it was different. Thank you. So we'll just clarify that for the record. Okay, sir, any questions for the agent, or someone ready for a motion? Very straightforward. Three variances.
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to move a motion to approve the application, subject to planning condition 1. The site plan and elevation drawings be tied to the site plan submitted on March 3rd, 2022. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you, Ms. McCluskey, for the motion. We have a seconder for that. Mr. Taylor, hand went up first. All in favor? Another unanimous approval. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. You have your application has been approved. Okay, our next application is item number 16, 22 9th Street. We do have a revised agenda page pursuant to a waiver, whereas there were 3 variances. One has been eliminated and one has been reduced. Planning is recommending refusal of the application. They believe the scale presents as a 3-story. We have 3 letters of opposition. And we have an email cover letter enclosing the revisions and summarizing those revisions. So let's hear from the agent is Mark Lilly of MLA Design Build. And we have the neighbors from 21 and 24 9th Street registered to speak, as well as the neighbor at, the 15 10th Street as well. So we have 3 neighbors registered to speak. And let's hear first from the applicant.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is.
Yeah, and sorry, just one thing maybe you can get it on the screen. In the additional materials received just yesterday, we have a homeowner letter that was sent out, I guess, to the neighbors. Okay, so let's hear from Mr. Lilly,
Okay.
the agent.
Yeah, I'm the agent for the owners at the house. The owners of the existing bungalow are an expanding family of 6, and they're proposing to do a 2nd and 3rd story addition over the existing structure, basically to provide more room for their growing family. They are proposing to remove an existing ground floor extension at the back, basically to increase the usable size of the rear yard. In our original application, as you mentioned, there was 3 variances. The first one was for FSI of 0.74. The second was for the height of 8.87 for specified pairs of walls. And the third one was for roof eave projection of 0.04 on the south lot line. So after we did have a discussion with community planning, and we did take their recommendations to heart, so we ended up revising the design with the revised version that you have there. We did make the following changes. We set back the 3rd floor front wall to 0.9 meters back. The south wall was moved back 0.3 meters, and the west wall was moved back 0.6 meters. So because of this reduction, did allow us to reduce the floor area to an FSI of 0.698.
Can we get those revised plans up, staff, on the board while the agent is speaking? Yeah, the staff report mentions you did make substantial revisions to improve, but they still feel it presents as a 3-story. And
yeah, I mean, knowing that we are still high on the specified pairs of sidewalls, we did work really hard to keep the building height as low as possible, even with the 3rd story. So, as to respect the neighbor to the north and the neighborhood in general, the building height is actually only 9.3 meters, whereas the maximum building height is 9.5. So we are, even though we're 3 stories, we are 0.2 meters lower than the maximum. I mean, after speaking with several of the neighbors, of which we realize there are some in objection, the owners were able to collect a petition of 6 signatures in support of this application. I think you may have a petition there with maybe 4 or 5 signatures. We were able to get another one this morning, so there is 6 altogether. With regards to the characteristics of the street, the owner is actually very conscious that this will be a home to live in and to allow them to continue to be part of the community. This is not a precedent-setting proposal. When considering the characteristics of the neighborhood, we see that there is a very diverse mix of buildings, such as bungalows, 2 stories, and 3-story homes. And there's also multi-unit apartments with all different types of architectural styles and massings. And in fact, the building to our south is a very large 2.5, 3-story apartment building with at least 6 units in it. It does have a very rectilinear massing, similar to ours, and this building actually dwarfs, this building that we're proposing. Up the road from us at number 57 and 57A, these are 2 3-story homes with a similar FSI, and at number 53, another 2.5, 3-story apartment building. So I believe that the variances before you are minor in nature, and I think it is fair to say that this proposal, with only 2 variances, will blend into the current diverse characteristic of the street.
Okay. Yes, you're only 0.1 times over on the coverage on the floor space index, and
That's
you
right.
have the side exterior main wall height, which is the issue that the planning is concerned with, the main exterior wall height. And the fact it presents as 3-story, they feel the massing is not appropriate. So does anyone have any questions for Mr. Lilly, or we'll move on to the 3 neighbors who also, 2 of them have, the first 2 also have letters, so we'll get those letters up on the board while they speak. No questions for Mr. Lilly. Let's move on to, you do? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, just number 20, which is directly to your south. Do you know the actual height of that structure?
I don't know the exact height, but I estimate it to be around 26 feet. So whatever that is in meters.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so the first speaker is the neighbor at 21 9th Street across the street, Karen Adams, and we have a letter from Ms. Adams.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the Committee of Adjustment. Thank you for inviting my comments regarding my opposition to the proposed variances at number 22 9th Street. My name is Karen Adams, and I'm a homeowner residing for 30 years at 21 9th Street, directly across from the applicant. I'm presenting a strong objection to the current proposal for minor variances, and I agree with the City Planning staff recommendation informing you on April 12th to reject this proposal, as the variances submitted still do not meet the tests under the Planning Act. Number 1, despite the applicant revising the initial application, the current variances requested are not minor and do not meet the general purpose and intent of the City of Toronto official plan and zoning bylaws. The proposed location of the 2nd and 3rd floor above the existing dwelling would create an adverse impact of height and massing to the street. The maximum permitted side main wall height is 7 meters. The request for the altered dwelling to have a side main wall height of 8.87 meters, a 26% increase, is not minor in nature and therefore does not maintain the general intent of the zoning bylaw. Number 2, the scale of the proposal, including the main wall height and massing, are not in keeping with the prevailing character of the neighborhood and is inappropriate for the development of the land and building. The policy for neighborhoods in the City of Toronto official plan requires that any development reinforce the existing physical character of the neighborhood, including prevailing heights, massing, scale, and dwelling type of nearby residential properties. This proposal does not meet this test. The scale of the proposal, particularly as it presents as a soaring 3-story dwelling, is of significant concern. The physical characteristics of the properties adjacent to the proposed development in the same block and the block opposite are predominantly comprised of 1-story and 2-story dwellings. The precedents Mr. Lilly spoke of at number 57 and 57A which are 3-story, are constructed at grade level with the front garage, a rear story walkout, and 2 stories above that, and are on private driveways, where this dwelling is on a shared driveway. The proposed development is also incompatible with the established built form and character of the neighborhood, and it will erode the historical character and aesthetics of 9th Street. Many neighbors have converted bungalows to tasteful and conforming 2-story homes that complement the existing streetscape of the neighborhood in their design aesthetic and exterior finishes. While the finishes are not noted on the plans for 22 9th Street, it's evident from the drawings that this dwelling will be a towering structure with a cold, hardscaped exterior, not fitting in with any of the homes surrounding it in the immediate context. The application would not only impact the character of our neighborhood, it would have a considerable negative impact on the community and the environment. The proposed variances will result in a loss of sunlight, privacy, views, spacing, and openness resulting from the mass, height, and bulk of the proposed development, and will have a negative environmental impact due to the loss of trees on the property in question. The height of the proposed dwelling will completely block the natural afternoon and early evening western sun to the front of my property, negatively impacting the quiet enjoyment of my front porch and diminishing the amount of light to my front garden and city tree. This will impact my lifestyle as I am an avid gardener. The intrusive front of house platform style balcony proposed for the 3rd story would overlook into my bedroom windows and down onto my front porch of my home, directly invading my privacy. The tree declaration submitted with this application is misleading, as there is no protection indicated for the 8 mature trees located at the backyard of the property. According to the survey and tree inventory attached to this application, all of these trees measured 30 centimeters in diameter or more at 1.4 meters above grade, which would indicate either permits would be needed in order to remove the trees, or the trees would need to be protected accordingly under the City of Toronto private tree bylaw. The signed tree declaration document attached indicates no to the question, will the proposed construction require the removal of protected trees? However, as witnessed on January 24th, 2022, several of these trees were cut down and removed by Cohen and Master Tree and Shrub Services, and it was observed that more had been removed at some point in the far rear of the yard. This occurred well in advance of this application. So I'm concerned by the misleading nature of this application and that it does not meet the bylaw for private trees. The applicant has contributed to the destruction of our city tree canopy and protection of our community's natural bird and animal habitats. In summary, this application would impact the character of our neighborhood and have considerable negative impact on our community and the environment. The scale of the proposal, including the main wall height and massing, are not in keeping with the prevailing character of the neighborhood and is inappropriate for the development of the land and building. The variances requested are not minor in nature and do not meet the general purpose and intent of the official plan and zoning bylaws. For these reasons, I strongly object to this proposal and urge the Committee of Adjustments to refuse this minor variance application as advised by City Planning staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams, and I want to thank you for not mentioning the last points you raised in your letter, because I was going to cut you off and say it's really not relevant. You know, every construction has noise and dirt and dust, and that's a separate issue. So I'm glad you didn't mention that, but thank you for your submissions.
I realize that, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, so you feel the massing is just too great, and again, you mentioned something was very interesting about the low height. Normally, people, one of the architects who's on the committee, not on today, he mentions, oh, you know, you have a height variance. Well, maybe that's because you have, you know, 11 or 12-foot height on your main floor, and but here in fact, you're saying the opposite. In fact, that this is substandard, that the 3rd floor is, you know, barely high enough for an adult to. What was the comment about that? That was interesting.
I had removed that from my comments. I mean, if the applicant wishes to have low ceiling heights in their bedroom and bathroom floors, that's fine. I mean, it's not typical of normal builds, and my concern was the adherence to those ceiling heights once construction was underway and the applicant and agent realized that
they would have to come back.
So,
they would have to come back for more height, for sure.
It's irrelevant to my point.
Yeah.
My points are on the size and scale and massing and the balcony that's intrusive.
Right. So they try their best to make it as low as possible, but which is sort of the opposite of sometimes of the observation, but that's what it is. So does anyone else have any questions or comments for Ms. Adams, or let's go back on to the next speaker, who is 24 9th Street, right next door, Chris Ferran or Christine Geirer. So I don't know who's.
Hi, you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Good morning. And I just want to kick off first. I just want to thank you, Mr. Clark, for chairing and the committee. This is my first time participating in an event like this, and I really think this is a valuable process, for my voice to be heard, which is important here as the neighbor right next door. My name is Chris Foran. My family and I have lived at 24 9th Street for 22 years. We've had probably 3 neighbors next door, in the time we've been there with no issues. And I just want to stay up front, that I'm not against construction. I'm not against people improving their homes, adding second stories. As Karen mentioned, like, this is pretty common in the area, pretty common everywhere around the city, and all the fun that goes with constant construction, but that's Toronto. But I got 2 key points here I think are very important, and they're very personal to my living experience and my family's living experience as the neighbor sharing a driveway. Number one, the project's excessive. They want to add 2 stories. So in effect, you would have a finished basement, the existing bungalow, 2 additional stories. And that is, gonna, block sunlight right into my living room, which is the main hangout for my family. This is where we spend our time. So just to give you guys a picture on the call here, the house number 26 to the north is, was a bungalow originally. They added a second story with a peaked roof. So don't get any sunlight from the north into my home. If this project next door gets the green light, I'm going to run into the
I'm sorry to interrupt. It looks like we lost the room. I don't have any audio. I don't know if anybody can hear me.
It looks like we're back. We have the clock showing.
Just to confirm, can everybody hear me?
Okay, we are back. I'm not sure how much of what Mr. Foran said was heard by everybody, so maybe if we can just restart his presentation.
Okay.
Where did we cut off, Evie?
We're not quite sure.
Okay, so
We did hear the beginning. I just don't know at what point we lost the room.
Well, we all heard, I guess, with the neighbors. I guess Mr. Lilly wouldn't have heard. Was that the room
Yes,
being on?
it's just anyone on YouTube wouldn't have.
Okay. That Mr. Lilly and the other neighbors are on the line, not just on YouTube. Okay. So I don't know, Mr. Your clock's been reset to 0. The NBA refs have weighed in, and I guess you can start over.
Okay. Well, just
You've
to
had some
repeat.
practice now. You've had some practice.
Yeah.
So. Let's see if you
just to
say anything
repeat,
different. Go ahead. We have your letter up on the board too, or we will.
Okay, great.
Look at us.
Yeah, again, I just wanted to kick it off, and good afternoon. And I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Clark, for chairing this. And I want to thank the committee. This is my first time attending something like this. And I think, you know, it's just fantastic that my voice can be heard. And I think this is a really valuable process. So I'm just glad this type of thing happens, right? So my name is
you're going to be heard. You're going to be heard twice. You're going to be heard twice now, not only once. Go ahead.
My name's Chris Foran. My family and I have lived at 24 9th Street for 22 years. Raised our family there. Love the neighborhood. You know, we share a driveway to 22. We've had, you know, at least 2 previous owners there with no issues. It's been a really nice experience. And I just want to say up front that I'm not against construction in the area. I'm not against people, you know, adding additions to their homes or any kind of home improvement. You know, that's just normal for Toronto. It's normal for the area. Predominantly, it's been bungalows in New Toronto, 9th Street. People looking for more space, so they had a second story. That's not my concern at all. It happens all the time. You know, like I said, that's life in Toronto and all the construction activity that goes with it. I have some personal issues that this project is allowed to proceed are going to impact me very directly, and they're both tied to the height of the proposed project. Number one, the scale is excessive. You know, you're taking an existing bungalow with a finished basement, you're adding a second and a third story to it. You know, that, just to give you guys an idea about sort of my situation, is I have a bungalow. To the north of me, at the number 26, was a bungalow. They added a second story with a peaked roof. So from the north, I get no sunlight into that side of my house. That's blocked. Number 22, the house in question, is to the south of me. And like I said, we share a driveway. The driveway is about 6 to 7 feet wide. You know, if you look at they added like a third story, this thing's going to impose right over top of me. So my living room, which, you know, faces the alley, that is the main source of sunlight to the front of our home. That's where we hang out. That's where we live, our family. And if you block the sunlight off for that, well, that's going to impact the quality of my life. That's going to be, you know, huge for us. The second point I want to make, just again, back to the height, you know, you have a third story, and I was looking at the building plans with the number of windows and that. I have a skylight over my son's bedroom. So now you're going to have visibility right into his bedroom from that height. You know, a second story, I don't think you would have that angle, but definitely a third story, yes. And he's a teenage boy. I'm sure he doesn't want people peering into him while he's getting changed. So that's a real concern for our family. The planning department, the city plan report that was posted on the 12th into the file, and all those documents have been a real help to me just reviewing those. They recommended not to allow these variances based on, you know, excessive physical character and the height specifically. And I just want to circle back. I just got a couple more points I want to make for the group, and I'll try to keep it short. But I just want to circle back to comments made previously by the agent for 22 about, you know, consulting neighbors and sort of, you know, making sure that this fits in with the neighborhood. I've lived next door to the owner of 22 for over 2 years. The first I heard about this project is when I got a letter from the city in my mailbox. That's unacceptable to me. I am sure I'm a pretty reasonable guy. If you know, I'd been consulted about this, we could have worked out some kind of compromise. You know what I mean? The only time that I did get any information from the owner was when I approached her 2 days after the deadline for, you know, submitting objections, which was the 12th, I believe. I spoke to that person on the 14th, and that was when plans were presented to me from the owner. So if I had not done that, or if I didn't have access to the city site, I'd be totally in the dark of what was going on. And that deadline would have come and gone. And I would not have had this opportunity to speak about this. So I think that's backdooring. The last thing I wanted to mention too is, again, I know, it's not that I'm opposed to construction, and I know neighbors are sent letters of support. It was a petition that the owner passed around yesterday. That's about construction in the area, right? That's, people always have opposition to construction and the activity. That is not my complaint. That's a given for Toronto. My complaint is the two items that I listed have a direct impact on the quality of my family's life as a neighbor next door.
Ferrand, if you could please wrap up, you're over the time allotted, and we have
and that's
speaker.
it. I'm good, Mr. Clark.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. 1.5 times. Any questions from Mr. Ferrand before we go on to the next speaker, who is Sheila Masters at 15 10th Street. 10th Street, so behind. Okay, no questions. So let's hear from Ms. Masters.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to speak to this application. As
And
you've
it looks
noted,
like you're just right directly behind. I'm just looking at the location maps. You're right behind the proposed construction.
exactly. I'm directly behind. Our backyards meet at the lot line. Although I'm on my address is on a different street, I'm very much connected. I'm making this verbal submission without a written submission because I was out of town when the notice of hearing was received, and I wasn't able to get the written report, written objections in before the deadline. So I'm doing this just verbally. So let me say first that I share most, if not all, of the concerns and objections that have been expressed already by the previous two speakers. I'm speaking specifically in my case to my concern about the detrimental effect that this proposed renovation would have on the character of this neighborhood. Now, Karen Adams spoke to this, and I'm certainly supporting that. In short, if this application is approved, it will erode the historic and current style of the neighborhood. I do understand, as others have said, that families of today may want more space than the traditional single-story houses might provide. For this reason, several homeowners in the immediate area have added second stories to their one-story houses. Most of them have done so, however, in a way that respects and maintains the style and character of the original house and of the houses nearby. The style and size proposed by the homeowner of 22 9th Street is radically different from the original house and from those surrounding it. It's ultra-modern. If approved, it will undermine the character of the neighborhood. Approval of this application would be contrary to the city's official plan as I understand it, and as referenced in the planning staff report. On a personal level, I moved to this neighborhood because I value its history and character. If this renovation is approved, I will have to look at the tall, ultra-modern structure from my back deck and from my windows that face the back of 22 9th Street. This is exacerbated by the removal of the trees that were spoken to earlier. My personal issue, however, with the view from my backyard is secondary to my concern about losing the wonderful character of this neighborhood. In summary, then, I support the objections of others, and I'm registering my specific objection to the size and style and structure of the proposed renovation on the grounds that it will negatively affect the character of this neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Masters. Any questions for Ms. Masters? And if not, we'll go back to Mr. Lilly to respond to the concerns of the three neighbors. which interestingly, we have one across, right across the street, one beside, and one behind. So we have the perspective of all directions. Mr. Lilly, put it back in your hands to as your rebuttal to the concerns raised by the neighbors.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we do appreciate the comments from the neighbors. Like I said before, we did work hard. We realize that the building is more modern than maybe some in the neighborhood, but we did several things trying to help the building to fit in as best as possible. With regards to a couple of the comments that were made, one regarding the balcony at the front, in reality, there's actually quite a large tree at the front of the property. And even if you look, let's say from Google Street View or something, you'll notice that it's almost impossible to see the existing house with the size of that existing tree. So with regards to having the balcony there, the reason for putting it out the front was that originally we were going to have it at the back, but knowing that at the back it would invade the privacy of actually the two of the three people that were mentioned. By putting it at the front, actually, I don't even think Karen would actually be able to see the balcony. And secondly, the building next to us has two balconies, almost identical, maybe a little bit bigger, next to it as well. So the other thing regarding the trees, we did have a permit to remove trees. I may not be quite up to date on exactly when the trees were removed. And with regards to our application, that may have been a fault of mine, not realizing that some of the trees had been removed, but they did have a permit for the tree removal. With regards to the neighbor to the north, we do understand that obviously there's going to be some shadow lines cast. If we had taken the building and spread it over 2 floors instead of 3, I think he would find that there would be the same amount of shadow still cast on their building. And in fact, there would be more shadow cast in the backyard. By having it all consolidated into 3 floors, we're actually able to keep the building more slender and therefore keep the shadow line tighter. So I think he would actually find that this scenario would be better. Even if we were to, instead of having it as a flat wall 3-story house, even if we were to go to a roof, a sloped roof, I think you would still find that the size of the building would be identical. We would still have similar shadow lines, whether it was a 3-story flat or a 2-story sloped. So, hoping that they sort of understand some of the thinking behind what was done here. We weren't trying to, disregard the characteristics of the neighborhood. We are trying to make it fit in as best as possible.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lilly. Any questions for Mr. Lilly or any of the speakers for that matter? Or are we ready for a motion? Mr. Taylor?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. A lot of commentary on 2 issues: the size of the building and its style. I'll address style firstly. This committee has no purview or mandate to regulate or control or decide on style considerations. Yes, style has an impact on the character of a neighborhood, but we don't control that. Turn now to the issue of size. When we think about massing as an impact item, we have to consider the whether or not the proposed building is being built within the building envelope, within the approved zoning standards. In this case, it is. Another big impact impact item is the height of the building, and in this case, the overall height of the building is within the zoning standards. I'm also influenced by the fact that immediately next door to this building, number 20, there is a 3-story apartment building. So all in all, my motion is to move approval without conditions.
Okay, and that's the two remaining variances.
Yes,
Thank you.
two variances 1 and 2. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for that motion. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 3-2. The application is approved. I think noteworthy fact, we're only slightly over the floor space index on this application, so it is modest from that perspective, and I agree with Mr. Taylor's comments. Okay, so the matter has been approved on a 3-2 split.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we can move on to the next application, which is item number 17, 76 Allanbrookhe Drive. It's an application to, and we have the revised highlighted to show changes. There were 4 variances. It's an application for a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There were 4 variances. There are still 4 variances, 2 of which have been revised. The coverage has gone from 38 down to 34%, where 33 is permitted. And there's been a slight reduction in the gross floor area, and the other 2 variants remain as is. On this application, we have revised plans and waiver to go along with the revisions. We have a cover letter, including the revisions in the zoning waiver after feedback. Arborist report, forestry is looking for conditions 2 or 5 a refusal. And in the additional materials, we have a cover letter from the applicant. The applicant is Etobicoke, the owner of the property. And we have also on present the neighbors at 72 and 74 Allanbrookhe registered to speak. Staff, we have both those neighbors. It's good to know at the outset.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, both neighbors are present.
Okay, so in that case, we'll start off with Etobicoke.
Good day, committee chair and esteemed members of the Committee of Adjustment panel. My name is Etobicoke, and I'm the owner of 76 Allanbrookhe Drive. I'm here to address 4 variances with the committee and its application that's intended to provide adequate living space for a growing family of 4. It's further intended to accommodate reasonable space for hybrid learning, if it may return, and to provide work from home space for my spouse and I, whose employers have moved to hybrid work environments considering the pandemic. The proposal would provide our family with more livable space and be responsive to us managing the care for an aging father with multiple comorbidities whom tends to be aging in family home. We want to take the time to bring revisions made with this subject of the city planning team answers from our original proposal and just summarize them today. So variance number 1, as you mentioned, Chair, which is the maximum permitted coverage is 33%. Our proposed dwelling in the original was 38%, and we've reduced it to 34%. The difference in permitted lot coverage was achieved by reducing the FSI and accounting for the error of the inclusion of a swimming pool in the lot coverage. By law 569-2013, the suggestion is that an in-ground swimming pool is considered to be soft landscaping, as it will receive and contain atmospheric water, and therefore it should not have been included into the calculation of lot coverage, which is our mistake, and we apologize for that. Additionally, in our first set of drawings, we included the basement walkout, which does not have a covered roof as a part of the lot coverage. With these changes reflected in our revised submission, we're about 1% off from lot coverage. In terms of variance number 2, our original proposal was for floor space index of 0.57. We've revised our drawings to be at 0.56. Overall, we made the home shorter by approximately 1.5 feet from the original proposal by making the overall depth of the home to equate to 13.26 meters, which in our minds is reasonable given the 17-meter bylaw. Variance number 3 is with respect to the side yard setback at 1.2 meters. The proposed dwelling will be located 0.94 meters on the north side lot. I just want to note that the bump out is only at the garage and not the entire length of the home. Further, the garage is unexcavated beneath and therefore doesn't impact the foundation below. Variance number 4 relates to the permitted maximum height of the peak roof dwelling. It is still at 6.5. It's still at 6.86 meters, which is approximately 1 foot higher for soffit height. This isn't a flat roof, just as a side note, as we strove to design something that fit more in characteristically to the existing neighborhood. In terms of the report by Urban Forestry provided and uploaded on April 14th, we appreciated the feedback with respect to the Department of Forestry and have responded to them effectively on Monday, April 18th, and are committed to working towards meeting the minds to ensure that they're comfortable with the revisions regarding the 2 points they outlined. I'd like to point out that their report to the Committee of Adjustments is based on the first set of submitted drawings and variances, and includes commentary related to the proposed pool rather than just the building structure that we're seeking variances on. In terms of their objection, in terms of tree number 1 that the city cited in their report as a privately owned fir tree measuring 32 centimeters in diameter, this was actually exempt from our arborist report as its diameter is no greater than 23 centimeters. So we will be taking that up with urban forestry and happy to come up with a meeting of the minds with respect to that and take their guidance on that. In terms of tree number 4, even with the home being longer in depth from the existing structure, we are almost 13 meters away from the neighboring tree that urban forestry identified as being removed or injured due to a pool installation. So we did not suggest to remove this tree, nor would we have any intention of doing that. Rather, in our arborist report, we suggest that we're fully aligned to doing an exploratory hand dig to ensure that the tree wouldn't be damaged during any pool installation. In terms of their request with respect to variance number 2 on maximum permitted gross floor area, I think it's worthwhile to note here that the suggestion of any removal of a healthy bylaw protected tree number 2 and 3 is that tree number 2 is a neighboring tree and it was not requested to be removed, nor do we have any intention of removing the 57 centimeter blue spruce tree. Tree number 2 is also 10.4 meters away from the proposed new dwelling. And our understanding is that we have about 3 times the space.
Ms. Bukovic, if you can please wrap up because
Yeah.
you're at a lot of time, you will get a chance to respond
No
to
problem.
one of the neighbors. Thanks.
So as it relates to the 2 city trees in front of the home, the difference between the existing home and the proposed dwelling is centimeters. And the 2 trees for the, would be protected by TPZ and they're located 8 and 10 meters away from the proposed construction area. So thank you.
Okay, and you were saying the other tree is 13 meters away?
Correct, in the back.
And that's from the building or from the pool?
From the building itself.
Thank you. Okay, any questions for the homeowner? Or if not, we'll hear from 2 neighbors. The first neighbor at 2 doors away, Robert McDougall, indicated he is in support, so we'll hear from him very briefly. And then we'll hear from the neighbor right next door at 74, who was, I guess, opposed to the application. Okay, so let's hear first. No one has any questions first for the homeowner before we move on? Okay, so let's hear from Mr. McDougall at 72.
Hello, my name is Rob McDougall. I'm very much in favor of this design. It looks very much in keeping with the neighborhood. It looks like a brave new piece to add to our neighborhood, and there are several houses in the neighboring streets and in the area that have similar kinds of designs, etc. So I am very much in favor of the changes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Let's hear then from the next door neighbor at 74, Olaf von Bremen. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm sorry, I'm getting some electronic voice talking in my ear at the moment. Yes, good afternoon. I
realize it is afternoon already.
It is indeed afternoon. I have been abroad for the last 4 weeks and only came back on Monday night, and only so the notice I only just managed to get included in this hearing, and I've realized in listening to some of the other presentations that I misunderstood what the hearing was for. I've now just recently printed these 4 variances, and most of the issues that I have are concern other things which probably aren't part of the jurisdiction of this committee. And I don't quite know who to talk to about those, but I do have a couple things to say based on just the presentation that I've just heard. And one other point, the first concerns the trees. and that is in the forestry report. It's tree number 4 or trees number 4. There are in fact 3 of them, and the forestry report has suggested that sort of these are all protected trees, and has sort of denied. Sorry, I'm a little bit as I say, not prepared, because I've written all sorts of things out, but then realized that it's not the appropriate place for it here. And one of the things the original presenter is saying, that the trees which are actually on my property are 13 meters away from the house, but they're only about 3 meters away across the property line from where they plan to install a pool. And part of that installation will involve cutting away at the roots of these trees, at least one of them. These are 100-plus-year-old oak trees that have been here since the area itself was farmland. And what I'm concerned about is if there's no way of knowing what exactly the roots look like, and if enough of the roots are hacked away at to install this pool, and the tree becomes unstable. I'm not so worried about the tree dying, but I'm worried about the tree becoming unstable, and there is some sort of windstorm and the tree blows over. Who is actually liable for any damage caused by this if they've damaged the roots? That's my concerns. The second concern, or the second thing that is maybe relevant here concerning these, the size and placement of the house, I believe, but I haven't had the time to research it, that if the original houses were offset, which is the case here of, I guess, the first five houses from 70 to 78, were all slightly offset in terms of the fronts of the houses, that offset needed to be maintained as part of a rebuild, and that it's true of the first 3 houses, the sort of 72 that has already been rebuilt. That was then offset the way it was supposed to, but the proposed plan for this new house has the front of the house further forward towards the street than both my house and the neighbor on the other side at 78 Allanbrook. And I thought that was some sort of law or bylaw that if you rebuild a house, you have to maintain these offsets if they were there originally. But as I say, I haven't had the time to research it. I find the size of the house excessive. The neighbor from 72 claims that there are other houses in the neighborhood, but in fact, on this street and in front of the house, there are only 2. One of them belongs to the neighbor at 72. The other one is, I believe, 3 Elmview Court. Otherwise, all the houses on the street are original. It's true that on the neighboring streets, Loyalist Road and on Old Oak, the original houses have been ripped down and rebuilt with these large homes. It is not true on the street that we're on, Alan. I'm concerned myself about privacy. Basically, the house is going to take up sort of nearly half of the property, or half the
Sir, if
backyard.
you can please wrap up. You're over your allotted time of 5 minutes. If you can please wrap
sure,
up.
That's fine. I'm mostly just concerned about privacy. I have a deck at the back of the garage, and there's a window going to be built there, and they'll be peering in or over into the patio, so I won't have any privacy. And anyway, that's at least the concerns that I have that are relevant to this committee.
Okay, thank you, sir. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Von Bremen? And if not, we'll go back to the homeowner, Ms. Begovic, to respond to his concerns.
Certainly. I'll start with tree number 4 in Urban Forestry's report with respect to that being in his backyard. Tree number 4, even with the home being longer in depth, we're almost 13 meters away from the neighboring tree. And in terms of any injury due to a pool installation in the future, which is, I don't believe, again, with respect to the bylaw, that it, I think it's exempt from this variance, but we didn't suggest removing this tree, and nor would we have any intention of doing that. Rather, in our arborist report, we suggest and are fully aligned to doing an exploratory hand dig to ensure that the tree would not be damaged during pool installation. A 30 centimeter wide, 1 meter deep exploratory dig along the edge of the swimming pool within the tree protection zone is actually required for this tree. Said exploratory root dig would be done by hand tools or an air spade and totally in the presence of a qualified arborist. The excavation of the swimming pool, if we want to address that today within the TPZ area, would be done in the presence of a qualified arborist as well. And again, just that the subject dwelling area is 13 meters away from the specific tree. The second part is as it relates to the two city trees in the front of the home and some suggestions on setback or how we are in line with the existing property today. The difference between the existing home and the proposed dwelling is actually centimeters. This was intentional. We sought to seek a design and placement of the home to virtually almost mirror what is in place today with the existing dwelling. Further, as it relates to the two city trees weren't into account for him, but they are located 8 and 10 meters away from the proposed construction area. Overall, we strive to be mindful of requesting relief and consider reasonable and hopefully minor changes in nature to the variances in order to maintain the overall purpose and intent of the official planning and zoning bylaw. So we really do believe that the new attached dwelling will contribute to a built form that's desirable and appropriate for the development of the land. Thanks.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions for Ms. Begovic or any of the or the other neighbor at 74, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Mr. Taylor?
Mr. Chair, I'm satisfied the requested variances, revised variances, meet the 4 tests, and I move approval subject to urban forestry conditions 1 and 2.
Thank you. Seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion, Mr. Komorik. Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Ms. Begovic, and thank you to Mr. McDougall and Von Bremen.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you. Okay, so our next application is item number 18. We have again a revised agenda page, revised to show the changes. It's an application. First of all, it's 172 Royal York Road, and it's an application to construct a 2-story addition above the existing dwelling and an attached garage at the rear of the dwelling. We had there were 8 variances. There are now 5, and 2 of them have been revised. We have the revised zoning waiver and plans. We have applicants' revisions and a support petition. Urban Forestry is requesting addition number 2, and we have the agent for the applicant, Bamdad Baghdadi, agent for the applicant, as well as we have the neighbor from 9 McDonald Street, registered to speak. Okay, so welcome, Mr. Baghdadi.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, committee. This is Bamdad Baghdadi from BBA Design Studio. I'm the architect and applicant for this application before you.
Okay. We don't have anyone here. We do have the neighbor at 9 McDonald. Some of the changes you made and why this application is worthy of support, and we'll hear from the neighbor.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. We contacted the planning department way before our committee application hearing today, more than a month ago. They had some concerns regarding some of the variances, and they asked us to reduce some of the variances. So we managed to reduce and eliminate some of the variances, which if the committee would like me to explain, I can. Number 9, which we have their support signature on the petition. I'm not sure what their concern is now, but let me explain the variances that are removed.
Okay, so first of all, you're saying that the neighbor present is signed. You're right. I see it's the first signature on the petition.
That's correct.
So I don't know, maybe they're just calling it to be in support, or they have some issue. So just keep it short, please, and then we'll see. You'll have to just respond to any concerns raised by the neighbor. I think perhaps we've heard enough for now.
Sure.
So let's hear from the neighbor and see if there's any concerns, and you can respond to that.
Absolutely.
So it's Mr. and Mrs. Haman.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I am just having a little bit of problem. Okay, yes, they are now unmuted. Thank you.
Hi everyone. My name is Lazan Haman. I'm the neighbor in 9 McDonald. I'm just here in support of what our neighbor is doing. He's been extremely forthcoming with everything, as shared plans and stuff with us. So we're just here
Nice
with
to hear.
support,
Okay.
and we think the neighborhood will greatly benefit from this.
Right, I see you're the first person that signed on the petition, so I figured if they're the first one, you're probably here in support. Very nice of you to stay on the line and endure our wonderful meeting here to do that, as opposed to just being people that are opposed. So very
Thanks
nice.
for having me.
You are the most directly, being the key lot situation. You're clearly the most affected neighbor by this. This. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Baghdadi, no need to reply to that. Let's see if committee members have any questions, or they're ready for a motion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kamara.
I have no questions. I'm satisfied that the revised proposal meets the 4 tests, and would therefore like to move approval subject to forestry condition number 2.
Thank you. Seconder for that? Mr. Taylor, thank you. All in favor? Another unanimous approval.
Thank you,
Mr. Baghdadi, and thank you, Ms. Haman, for your support.
Thank you, committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our neighbor for the support. Thank you.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you. Okay, the next application is 1 Ray Avenue. It's an application to construct a 3rd-story addition above the existing dwelling and a 3-story rear addition. And there are 4 variances. And we have nothing whatsoever other than a planning report which recommends refusal of the application. We have Bruno Lopez, the agent for the applicant, as well as the neighbor at 17 Brittany Court registered to speak. So Mr. Lopez.
Good afternoon. My name is Bruno Lopez from MXL Engineering, and I'm representing the owner.
Okay. So we have a negative planning report here. So we'd like to, I guess we need a presentation from you as to why this is worthy of support. They feel that the floor space index of 0.96 and side exterior main wall height of 10.38 will result in a scale of development massing not in keeping with the prevailing character.
Yeah, so if I may, I was very
talk about your soft landscaping variance as well. So please go ahead and let us know why the committee should support, with notwithstanding planning's negative opinion.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is actually a very straightforward application. I'm quite surprised from the report that I received, because I spent a good few hours with the planner. And again, the points that he brings almost a little bit contradicts what we discussed over the phone. So if I may start as a footnote, this property actually has a sleeve beside it, which is like about 10 feet width all the way off the property, that we start this process trying to purchase this property that belongs to the city. And we actually contacted Barbara about a year ago on March 8, 2021. So we start to spin the wheel. We got to the director of property manager. We got the property officer. We went to the manager of transportation. And up to date, we are still spinning that wheel with nothing objective. So the intent was to buy that sleeve of property that is dormant in there that actually we could use as a driveway. So if I might start actually from the fourth variance, I believe that most of the cases and my own projects that I'm dealing lately, most of them, they actually trigger when we do a secondary suite or a second unity triggers these variants, which is fairly new. In regards to the space index, we understand that this is going to be turning in a high density area. So we are less than 500 meters away from the first station of the LRT. So, and if you look at the surroundings, we have buildings, 24-story buildings, and we have somehow high mass considered buildings, and the area is being for development. So I understand that 0.96 might seem a little bit, but from when we already granted a 0.8, I think is very, very minor. In regards to the exterior walls height being at 7 meters, and we have it at 1038, I couldn't figure out myself yet where that 1038 came from, but because of the time that it takes, all the revisions back and forth, and so I want to assume that this is an honest mistake from the examiner. And if staff can actually point out to drawing A301A, which is the front view, you'll see that even the maximum height of the building, we are at 8.7 meters. So these 10 point something meters, it's completely wrong, which is like another story above the 3 stories. So something's really wrong with this number, but I don't want to argue or debate about this number because again, when the area allows you 11 meters of highest area and actually allows you for 3-story, there is no way that it can build 3 stories without having at least 8-9 meters of height on the lowest side on the eaves. So this point is a little bit, I would say, off the curve. In regards to the landscaping, if staff can go for the site plan A0101, you can see that we did a lot of gymnastics to actually introduce the maximum possible landscape. So if you can see the front, this entire site as exists today, it's made out of concrete and asphalt, 100%. So we implement as maximum as possible at the front, and we implement the maximum as possible at the back. So if you see the driveway going to the garage, we have to keep the turning radius for the cars, and we took the maximum possible of landscape, soft landscape in this case. And even there is a little sleeve you can see on the south side, which looks like the north on the drawing. We introduced a mini sleeve in there, so we did the maximum we could do. Again, it's almost impossible to do it better. In terms of massing, I discussed it with the planner, and if you go to the other side of the street, you can look at number 4, 6, and 8. It's a 3-story building already existing. It's pretty much the same mass. So again, I got very surprised with these comments because in fact, it contradicts quite a bit what we discussed before. So that's pretty much my final comments.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lopez. Perfect timing. Yeah, the report is dated April the 11th. Did you get in touch with staff?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And we had a final conversation where he said, is there anything that you can do for, and his big concern was landscaping. And I say, I cannot ask the homeowner to just destroy the garage to implement what is required because there is no other way. And he asked, hey, Mr. Lopez, did you and the homeowner could look into that sleeve that belongs to the city? I said, yeah, we already went on that, like even before we start this project. But because that particular situation was taking already 1 year, the homeowners decided, you know what, we're gonna forget about pursuing, trying to buy this land, which is like dead land sitting there, going nowhere, and we just proceeded with the application the way it is. So it's and okay. If you see it overall,
mitigated by the fact that you have this laneway as a buffer, and You're saying
Correct.
it mitigates the situation. You were offered to pay it, but did you ask? Did you ask? You mentioned that you don't understand the main wall height of 10.38. Did you raise with him at that point, the planner, how that came about?
No, I didn't. And I'm gonna be bluntly honest. I just look at that number 10 point something today in the morning, and I was like, oh, something's really wrong in here, because I would imagine that there is an old bylaw that actually doesn't jive with this 3-story allowed.
Yeah,
But
because you're saying you couldn't build 3 stories in 7 meters. It's impossible.
it's impossible. Even at 2 stories, you already passed that number. So something is really wrong in here, both with the number and again the bylaws. They don't talk to each other.
And you're saying 3 story is permitted here, and there
Yes,
is a
correct.
relatively high FSI of 0.8.
Correct.
But you're about 50 square meters over, or not even, a little less,
Yes.
46. Okay, so let's. If no one has any questions for Mr. Lopez, let's hear from the neighbor, Mr. Fernandez at 17 Brittany Court.
Mr. Chairman, we did have Tito Fernandez. He was sound checked. It looks like they have dropped off the call. They're no longer around.
They're on there, but there's no speaker beside their name.
Where is Brittany Court in relation to this? The location map is kind of close. I don't see Brittany coming up on the location map. But...
I did manage to unmute Mr. Fernandez. Okay.
Hey, Mr. Fernandez, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And
so where are you located? 17 Brittany Court. Where is that in relation to the subject property?
It's I'm related to the corner of the property on the corner of Weston Road and Ray.
Okay.
And,
okay, what are your concerns, sir? Let us know what your concerns
my
are.
concern is the laneway, which it's a city property.
Mm-hmm.
And if in the future we build that property on the corner, it's a public driveway, and we think we should consider use it also. So we disagree in like the city ever sell that laneway, which also in the future can be probably used for the rear of the other properties to have access to the garages. So I don't think the city should ever sell that lane.
Is this rebuild? Is this construction proposed here? This addition above the existing dwelling in the 3-story rear addition impact on the
laneway? Yes.
On the laneway, it impacts on it. How so?
Yes,
please tell us why. We'll have them respond. It's not being built over the laneway, but you're saying it's too close to the laneway, or what's the problem?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Actually, I mean, the access to the garage of that house, it's from the laneway.
Okay.
And I really think that we should always consider like a public lane and not be bought by that house.
Okay, so the planning department doesn't mention any impact on the lane. They have other issues, but okay, so that's your concern, is with the impact on the laneway, which you say should be available for the future to allow access to garages.
Yes.
And currently, it's not being used at all. The applicant said it's not being used.
Well, it is used. Yes.
Okay. Who's it used by?
It's used by the people that live in that house.
The people who live at number 1 Ray.
Yeah, looks like, yes. Because
Okay.
I mean, it's a fence, because it's just like a fence on the other property.
But there's nobody else using it. No other properties using that laneway right now. It doesn't service any other adjacent neighbors.
Well, but it will be probably soon. It's just because it's a fence on the other property, which when that fence is removed, then we're going to be using that driveway or that laneway.
Okay. Okay. So let's. we'll have the agent, Mr. Lopez, respond to your concern. Does any of the committee members first have any questions for Mr. Fernandez? Okay. If not, let's hear from Mr. Lopez in response.
Yeah, no, I'm not aware about being used by the homeowner. No, the homeowner has his own laneway, which is about 6 feet wide. That it's more than enough to give access to the back. yeah, again, there is a dead spot in there that it's not used by anybody. It's been like this for even before my client purchased the property. So nobody was aware, even the owner wasn't aware until we actually start this process, and we noted that this was a dead spot that belonged to the city. So we contacted again Barbara, and she just give us some contacts. So we start to spin the wheel within the city, different departments. We haven't got yet any answer, any firm answer. But yeah, if let's put it bluntly, if it's out there for grabs, whoever wants to pay or buy it or so, I don't know the process. We still doing this process. We don't understand how the outcome is, and we are more than welcome. If there is anybody else interested, why not be on the bid for it, right? So I don't know exactly the process, but at this point in time, I just want to refer that we did the effort to actually mitigate and minimize using this property, right? That is available, but we couldn't get it, so we have to move on with our lives.
Exactly. Okay, thank you. Any follow-up questions for Mr. Lopez, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion on this application?
A question for the applicant. Sir, do you have a elevation that shows your proposal in relation to the adjacent semi?
Actually, if you look at the A301A or A301B, it shows both the existing and the new, and the adjacent neighbor is pretty much what you see on drawing A301B.
I understand that, but it doesn't really show the impact of it because they're on separate drawings. And then your existing garage, does it currently encroach onto the laneway that's there?
I believe from when we got the survey, if you look at the survey, there is just one tiny bit because the lot is skewed and the garages are parallel. So the next door neighbor garage actually encroaches into my client's property, and my client's garage at the very rear of the garage encroaches about 10 or 18 centimeters to the property. Yes, but that's how it's built.
Yeah, I understood. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions, or is someone ready for a motion? Oh, I got everyone. I'm back on the screen. Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is a situation that's constrained by the lot size and the physical aspect of a lane and whatnot. And I'm satisfied that what's being proposed is reasonable. You know, I'm influenced by the fact that it doesn't require any yard adjustments or overall height adjustments. I think the FSI is reasonable relative to what's permitted. Not much can be done about preserving landscaping in the rear yard. So I move approval on grounds that the variances meet the 4 tests.
Okay, and there's no conditions.
No conditions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion. Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. You have your variances. Thank you, Mr. Lopez, and thank you, Mr. Fernandez.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to our last item of the morning agenda, which is item number 20, 42 West Glen Crescent. And it's an application to construct a new detached dwelling and attached garage. We do have, as often we have today, revised highlighted plans for the agenda showing changes. There were 7 variances. There are now 5. 3 of those have been revised. We have the revised plans and zoning waiver, cover letter, detailing the revisions, and the planning has provided a report for information. We only have one speaker, the agent for the applicant, Mr. Eddie Perez. Welcome.
Hello, good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. I'm Eddie Perez here on behalf of the owner. As you stated, we're proposing a new dwelling. We made some minor changes to accommodate the planning department, and we feel that now it's minor in nature. And
okay, we do have planning's report for information which echoes the same, that you've made changes and that's an improvement. And so they're giving it for information, detailing the changes. So they're not opposed. Any questions for Mr. Perez, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Mr. Kamarick.
I'm good to go with the motion. I believe the revised proposal is in keeping with the Fort test and would like to therefore move approval subject to forestry condition number 2.
Thank you, Mr. Kamarick. Seconder for that motion, Ms. McCluskey. Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Perez.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
And yeah, thank you. And thank you, panel members and staff. We are now adjourned for lunch break and return to do the afternoon session. What would you like, Ms. Bartosik? 2:30?
2:30 would be good.
Like a little
thank you.
little over an hour, so that gives us an hour and 50 minutes, which is our sort of standard. So we will return at 2:30 to do the afternoon session. Just a question for staff before we break. Did you send me the attendance sheet for the whole day or just for the morning?
The whole day.
Okay, I'll have to go back because it only printed off the morning. So
Okay.
I'll look at that over the lunch break and hopefully I'll get that printed off. Thank you. Have a good lunch, everyone. Or an early dinner. Thanks. Okay, stop video.